Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. I am your humble host, Gavin the Kitty, and today I am joined by the lovely,
Argent of Doodle Owl.
and we are covering the best ways to play every Mega Man game. So,
The best ways to play every single Mega Man game.
every single one of them. I have
Ooh.
been up, down, and sideways. This has been a project I started all the way back in 2017.
Ooh.
And this video has been sitting on hold and in between things since 2019.
Well, then I am honored that you have invited me on along this wonderful journey.
I couldn't have it any other way.
Fair enough.
So let's get a little bit of background. I've played all of these games. Have you played any of them?
No.
Not at all. Now,
Nope. I have watched a lot of people play Mega Man. They've seen like some of the best kind of action-y platformers on the market. I've just never had a chance to.
alrighty. So we're just gonna run through the main timeline with you,
Mhm.
and then later on we are going to have a part at the end where I run through the main timeline with the Battle Network timeline with somebody else.
Sounds like a plan.
So, let's go ahead and jump in here with starting out with the classic timeline, the original timeline here. So, in the year 200X, super robots are all over the place, and a new line known as the Robot Masters are created. They are basically your go-to for major problems. There's lumber robots, there's heavy machinery robots, construction bots, demolition power experts, waste management, freezing cold research robots, and all of a sudden an evil, the nemesis of Dr. Light, Dr. Wily shows up and kind of takes control of the robots, and one of the helpers, known as Rock, who was given the sole purpose of helping humanity, decides it's in his best interest and it's in his programming to help humanity in any way possible, so he must help humans by stopping the Robot Masters. Dr. Light agrees, powers him up reluctantly, and sends him on his way as the new fighting robot Megaman for the first game.
Okay. A question real quick. Number one, who's Dr. Light?
So Dr. Light is the two-time winning Nobel Peace Prize scientist who created industrial strength robots like the Robot Masters, things, smaller enemies like the Metools, stuff. Essentially, he got his start with focusing his research on AI. The timeline actually differs into the Battle Network timeline if he focuses solely on the AI and the internet, but the timeline that we are on, he focused his efforts on intelligent robots and machines.
Gotcha. So it's more kind of like almost Blade Runner-esque, except the robots are treated a lot better.
Kinda. We'll get there.
And our main character, Mega Man himself, happens to be kind of following in his programming to be good-natured and attempting to fix all of the issues when all of the other robots have been taken over.
Yes, but here's the thing, he does not have free will.
Well, interesting.
So, the robots in the classic part of our timeline do not have free will.
Interesting.
They cannot ponder the question, I think, therefore I am.
Okay, so we don't even have that particular layer to it. They're just robots.
They're just robots. Like, they have human attributes. They have emotions, they have personalities, but the minute they ponder themselves beyond what they are programmed to do, it kind of breaks them, and they are forced into shutdown. They just cannot.
Okay.
They just have not reached that level of I think, therefore I am. They cannot think past that point.
Okay, so they're for lack of a better term, philosophical zombies. They do all of the things, they feel all of the stuff, but it's just because of their programming. They're not doing it because they want to.
Yes, and
Okay.
we're gonna get into things later on that make you question it, but for now, machines are basically the human companion.
Machines are machines.
Yes, but they're treated as if they are people because they're so human-like that they might as well be, despite the fact that they're not, and they have functions and they have to abide by those functions.
Well, I mean, that's honestly how I would approach human-like robots if they had emotions. I mean, on the moment you might accidentally evolve being sapient, I want to be nice to you the whole time, just in case.
Absolutely.
Seems legitimate.
So this first game came out on the Famicom in December 17th, 1987.
Woo!
It was a lovely game for its time, and then they decided to however, during development, they were told that the game would not sell, and Capcom did not make a lot of copies. And then, with only, I think, a couple weeks to plan out a North American release, they shot out one of the worst box arts I have ever seen.
Ooh.
So the first game is known as, it has this character on the front known as quote-unquote bad box art Megaman. The entire thing.
I just looked this up. This is beautiful. This is like MS Paint before MS Paint. This is exactly. Oh my god! It's like psychedelic disco dance with a paintbrush. I'm not even fully sober while making. This is beautiful. This is I'm not sure why there aren't more memes of this.
Oh, there's tons of them. You just have to go looking. This though, the box art doesn't represent the game. The game is really well done. You've got 6 bosses and I believe 3 or 4 final stages. I have played and beaten this game multiple times, especially even on this channel. After the NES release, though, it later came out on the Genesis via the Wily Wars, which is a 16-bit rendition of the game, along with packaged in with 2 and 3.
What were the advantages of 16-bit for this game?
Not a whole lot. They upgraded the visuals, they upgraded the audio. The main thing about upgrading to the Genesis was like, Capcom is now on Genesis, let's shoot over our 3 best Mega Man games.
Okay, that makes sense. Just port it because you want to have yourself on the new console.
Plus it was a chance for one of their side developers, Minakuchi Engineering, to take a crack at, making stuff for consoles.
Gotcha.
Inafune, who was at the time the director for the series, reportedly had a nightmare and several night terrors and headaches just working with Minakuchi for the Genesis games. It only came out in Europe and Japan, and then as of 2022. It finally came over here to the West via Limited Run Games, limited edition copy.
Yeah, like night terrors? Was he just that much of an awful person to work with, or was it just a haunted game?
He just had a lot of trust issues when it came to working with other developers. Inafune is more of a businessman, and at this time he was probably a bit of a rough section to work with because the Genesis was out, the Super Nintendo was out. He was making the X series, the Classic series, and managing other projects like Street Fighter.
So this is just like a complete, just overstressed kind of vibe.
Yeah, we're not going to go over Inafune very much in this, but just know that he no longer works at Capcom, and that's probably for the best.
Fair. Moving on then.
The next version of this game to come out was a mobile phone version, which ran about half the frames, and came out with all 6 of the titles. It was later ported to Android and iOS, and then later stricken off the store.
Wait a minute. So mobile phone? We're talking flip phone era?
We're talking Java flip phones.
Yo.
And then they ported them over in 2018 to Android and iOS, and then took them offline earlier last year in 2020.
Damn.
These were not good ports of these games, but they are worth a look just for how silly and goofy they were.
Fair enough. Do you need to find a mobile phone to play these nowadays then?
So I actually managed to buy all of them from the Play Store, so I got to give them a shot. Before they were taken off the store. I did import one singular flip phone so I could give these a shot. They are not good.
I just find it funny that you can play this on your mobile or cellular device, as opposed to a smartphone.
Well, yeah. Well, it's later on. It's on a smartphone, but by this point, by the time they decided to port it, NES simulators exist, and you could run the games way better than these ports.
Fair.
The next version to come out was the Anniversary Collection for the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox.
Okay.
And don't play this version.
Don't get Mega Man
On-
Anniversary Collection on the GameCube. Got it.
Yeah, so this collection came with Mega Man's 1 through 8, and then the two arcade titles, Power Battles and Power Fighters.
Mhm.
And for the GameCube, they flipped the A and B buttons.
No.
The
Just no.
The PlayStation 2 had graphical and audio problems.
I mean, it's the PS2. That's where you're supposed. Never mind. Carry on.
And then, well, you'll find out why that was ridiculous. And then the Xbox version had graphical bugs. It only got worse with the 360. And it had an audio bug where things would just get really loud and really quiet randomly.
So it just has eardrum destroyer mode on.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's just how.
I have heard multiple times from multiple people, it's the best collection because it was all the games on the console. I'm like, but there was input lag for every single one of them. Not a single version of them ran well. It was outsourced to a really low-budget studio. I just can't see a reason to own it other than for the little extras.
Kind of like the Silent Hill Dreams, like I forget what it was called, but the Silent Hill HD collection they made, where they broke the fog, where the fog is an integral part of the game. You have to not be able to see through the fog, and then you could see through the fog, and that's before all of the other glitches.
Yeah.
It sucks when I have to recommend a 2002 PC port to people when they actually want a version of the game that can be played, but that's what I have to do.
Well, so I mentioned I mentioned the PS2 was really weird, right?
Yeah, because usually things work best on that console in particular from this era.
Yeah, well, it's even more upsetting because these versions of the games weren't the NES versions. They were stripped down versions of a PlayStation 1 set that came out across 1 year. So, these came out on the PlayStation 1 across an entire year for the anniversary of the series for the 15th anniversary. Each of these versions included extras that allowed you to use things like the Pocket Station to play minigames and increase your life bar. You could have Mega Man have a charge shot in Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 where he didn't have it. You could get the slide in 1 and 2 where he didn't have it. You could upgrade and make sure he could climb ladders faster. There was remix music. In 4 through 6, you could even play the entire game without his helmet on. And all of the games had remixed music.
Okay, that sounds decent and pretty fun on its face.
And a boss rush mode, and all of those features were stripped out for this PS2 Anniversary Collection.
This is why we can't have nice things.
I imported all 6 of them just to give them a shot, and they are just as good as I remember, and it's a version that I'm going to recommend for people who are interested in extras.
Hey.
The next version to come out after all of this was a remake called Mega Man Powered Up. It came out on the PSP. It was, alright, vehicles. It was a fully 3D remake of Mega Man 1 that was entirely chibi. And it's very impertinent that I mention this. It had a level creator where you can upload and download stages made by other people.
Ooh, that's cool.
You could play as all of the bosses, including the 2 new bosses they added, Oil Man and Time Man.
That's super cool.
You could play as Roll, Proto Man, and even have Mega Man have his charge and slide like before. And from the entirety of that game coming out, the downloading of stages is finally going away next month. This game,
I mean, that's pretty good long-term support.
This game came out in 2006 for the PSP.
That's pretty good for the PSP. That's really good support.
Absolutely, fans have already taken it amongst themselves to download and back up every single stage, every piece of DLC content, all the costumes for Roll. It had 100 challenges too. Like,
Mhm.
this game is absolutely jam-packed, and it is my preferred way of playing Mega Man 1 just because of all the extra little goodies.
Really hope that like the emulation community is able to find ways to add the additional stages to that going forward.
Oh, no, the emulation community has already done that.
Beautiful. Oh my god, I love the universe sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. That's beautiful.
And the final release is something called the Legacy Collection.
Okay.
This is the most easily, readily available collection that you can play.
Okay.
It is Mega Man's 1 through 6. It has something like 25 challenges that span across all 6 of the games. It's got achievements for its respective platforms, and then was later put on Switch, packaged with with all 10 games.
Nice.
Called Legacy 1+2, and it's already on PS4 and PS5. It's got an overclocked mode where it gets rid of all of the sprite flicker and slowdown. It's got all of the lore entries about all of the enemies and whatnot from the PlayStation games thrown in there for good measure, all nice and translated. And while it doesn't have any of the bonuses and whatnot, it's still the easiest way to play it. It often goes on sale for less than $10.
That sounds pretty damn awesome, actually, for a solid classic game collection. They didn't mess it up like they did with the Anniversary Edition. This one sounds like a good, solid, worthy successor.
It absolutely is, and I must say, out of all of these versions that I have covered here, the PlayStation 1 is a really cool look at. The Genesis game is pretty good. It's already on Switch. You can play it if you have the Online Plus. Powered Up is worth a look and a couple run-throughs if you've never played it before. And the Legacy Collection, if you just want that pure experience, go for it. Legacy Collection all the way. Another version I can mention is, it was also on the Virtual Console for the Wii, 3DS, and Wii U, but with all those shops going down, I don't really feel it's necessary to mention it going forward, so I'm gonna
Which
leave
is
it out.
unfortunate. I actually really liked the Wii as a console and would have preferred longer-term support, but I understand why they've moved on to the Switch.
Yeah. So, Mega Man stopped Dr. Wily the first time. 1 year and 2 weeks later, Dr. Wily managed to escape the clutches of the law just long enough for him to create 8 bosses and attacked Mega Man directly. The game was so Mega Man. This is the Mega Man 2 that we all know and love for the NES.
Gotcha.
Of course, Mega Man is a little bit. He's a little bit slippier than in the first game, but it's
Slippier? What do you mean?
like if I jump and hold right, if I let go of the right as I land, I'll still move forward a little bit.
Gotcha. Is this like a good addition to the game or a bad one in your opinion?
It was one.
Usually
It was taken out of the Genesis version and all future Mega Man games. It was something of a holdover from Mario.
Gotcha. Just adding a slight bit of both artificial difficulty as well as like interesting momentum to a platformer.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's essentially just more Mega Man 1. I think it's a good time, but it's not the best game in the series. But people like to tout that because of the soundtrack for some reason.
Gotcha.
Honestly, though, this game also had all of the same versions listed before, except for a PSP port. It never got that.
Okay.
This game is good. Once again, I can recommend the Genesis version on Switch. I can recommend the PS1 as a cool look at, and I can recommend the Legacy Collection for anyone actually trying to play these games.
Gotcha.
It's never had any remakes. PSP port was planned, but because of it being on the PSP and the Powered Up not selling well, they just didn't end up making it.
So this might be one of the few reasons to actually bust out my PS1 and like see if it works.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I actually been looking for more games for that one because one came into my possession a little while ago, and other than the original Silent Hill, I haven't found much for it.
Well, I can give you a lot of recommendations for the PS1, but that'll be another time, I think.
Maybe a different video.
Absolutely. Of course, with Mega Man 2 coming out, I should probably go into a little bit of the dev history here. Capcom said no to this game.
Really?
Yeah, Capcom initially said no. It took them an entire year. They said they could make the game as long as it didn't interfere with any other games in development. It was
That's some grade A Cap comedy.
It was a passion of love from the developers, and they spent and took their entire year's worth of development and poured their heart into it. They ran a boss contest in Japan through magazines, allowing fans to submit bosses for it, and that was something that continued going forward.
That's beautiful, actually.
The entirety of Mega Man 2, once it came out, it sold like gangbusters, and Capcom was kicking themselves for not realizing that this was a series worth keeping a hold of. So, after this game came out, they commissioned 2 Game Boy games and a DOS game, and started work immediately on Mega Man 3.
Wait, there was a DOS port?
We'll get there.
Okay, careful, getting ahead of ourselves.
We're getting ahead of ourselves because that is its own game and its own story. So the next game in the timeline is Mega Man 1 for Game Boy.
Okay.
So this was made by Minakuchi Engineering, who made the Genesis port, which is all fine with me. This game, I've played it a couple times. It is brutally difficult, but it's not bad. It introduced something called the Mega Man Killers, but this has only ever had two versions.
Okay.
The Game Boy and the Virtual Console on 3DS.
Fascinating.
I can recommend the Virtual Console for now, but this is going to be one of those games that shoot up in price afterwards, because it needs to be re-released. It's a good game. It's just not the best game.
It's one of those ones that absolutely needs to find itself onto the Switch, or maybe into like a Switch Capcom collection.
Yes, I honestly have been thinking if they make a Game Boy port, they need all 5 of these Game Boy games on there. Because
that would be awesome, yeah.
Yeah. I really, really wish more people could understand how good that game is. It's got its own remixes of all the NES music that some of them don't even sound like the NES tracks anymore. You fight 4 bosses from Mega Man 1, 4 bosses from Mega Man 2, 1 special final boss, and a new character named Inker, who is the Mega Man killer for this game.
Nice.
So, the next game on our timeline is actually Mega Man 3.
Okay. It's a lot of games before we got to the third one.
Just a bit. We're only 4 games in, and we're already... We're getting to be a little bit faster. This game took place August 28th, 200X. The storyline was after Dr. Wily's defeat in the last game. He finally faced punishment and crime, and Dr. Light said, "Hey, I'll vouch for this man. I will help him come back to the world of robotics and be an ethical roboticist. And we will start by making a gigantic peacekeeping robot built to stop hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, and the like, named Gamma."
This seems legit. Real legit.
However, the 8 robots that were created to help collect the energy crystals, 4 of them flew back off to space with their energy crystal, and the other 4 stayed on Earth and started causing a ruckus there.
Yeah, fair.
So,
Fair enough.
Mega Man has to go out and stop them, and there's this new threat called Breakman, who... I'll get back to him in just a little bit. But it's all one big plan from Dr. Wily as one final gambit to kind of sort of take over the world. But he doesn't so much succeed. Breakman ends up betraying him, and it turns out that Breakman is actually the prototype for all Robot Masters named Proto Man, also known as Blues.
Neat.
And was Dr. Light's... Because Dr. Light is like the father of all robotics, he considers Rock, his sister Roll, and Blues to be his children.
Okay.
Blues was not built with any sole purpose in mind. He cannot ponder, I think therefore I am, but he can act on his own best interest of self-preservation.
So he doesn't have like a prime directive like a lot of the other robots. He has a you figure it out, which gives him a lot of flexibility to be very scary.
So his power core was going to die and was killing him slowly, and Dr. Light was going to replace it with a better solar core.
Mhm.
Wily found him, fixed him, and put in a nuclear core.
Oh.
And it is slowly deteriorating inside of him. It's well shielded and he's not a harm to anybody, but if he takes enough hits, he is kaboom. Giant nuclear blast.
But from his perspective, it works out, because being nuclear powered has so much extra oomph that he doesn't need to care. But that's not how this works.
No, it's not. He gets very concerned when he finds out. Dr. Wily even ends up reprogramming a test droid known as the Skull Robot, or Doc Robot, or Diverse Operating Circuit Robot, and shoves on the eight IC chips from Megaman 2. So then Megaman not only has to go up against Breakman, 8 robots built by Wily and Light, but also a rampaging robot who can't decide which thing he's going to do first: destroy Mega Man or destroy the other 8 brothers inside of him.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot more than just nuclear deterioration.
Yeah, Breakman doesn't find out until after this game that he has a nuclear core, but he was equipped with a shield and a buster, so he'll be okay.
Okay.
If he survives, the nuclear core will eventually die out, and he will just be more landfill. If he gets destroyed, nuclear explosion.
So as long as he dies naturally, it'll be fine. But
if he can get that core replaced. But like the other games, this was the last one to be released on the Genesis via the Wily Wars. I can recommend that version. It was on the PS1. It was also on the Legacy Collection, of course. And I recommend this game wholeheartedly. It's probably the best out of the trilogy, but it was also rushed a lot.
Really?
It was so most of the dev team from 2 ended up moving over to Street Fighter 2's development plan.
Okay.
And a lot of these people who were coming on to make the third game were inexperienced programmers. So a lot of the deadlines didn't get hit. A lot of bugs didn't end up coming to fruition. But it's okay, because the game came out and it's considered one of the best.
Fair enough. I mean, if the results were good, the results are good.
Oh yeah, and this dev team certainly picked up a lot going forward.
Sometimes a young but passionate dev team can figure out how to get into it and really make it go. So far, the plotline of this one is the most interesting to me as well.
Oh yes, this one was adapted into a comic.
Nice.
In fact, everything up to this point has been adapted into the Archie comics.
I might have to look those up.
It is 50 issues. It ended with a hiatus, but it won multiple awards for being one of the best comic book adaptations of all time.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to look into that.
Absolutely, and I can recommend the definitive dubs version of the story, because they dubbed the entirety of the Mega Man 3 arc, and it is wonderful to hear it acted out.
Nice.
So our next game on the timeline is actually that collection.
Oh, nice. We're finally there.
Yeah, so that Genesis collection ended up having an extra story tacked on called Wily Tower.
Okay.
So the whole reason you were going back through these games, starting with the first, the second, and the third, is because Wily stole a time machine and has been hopping through time to try and stop you.
Okay.
And learn from his past mistakes. This is also where the timeline kind of diverges.
Okay.
And I can recommend a video from a guest commentator for this episode, Ripley Revo, for any curiosities there. But all you need to know is that Wily created 3 robots known as the Genesis unit.
Okay.
To stop you, and once you stop him, he hops back into the back into his time machine into the future.
Okay, so like, what's special about the Genesis unit? It's 3 separate robots. You said?
It's 3 robots based on the Journey to the West characters.
Okay, cool.
We have a pig, a kappa, and a monkey.
That is super cool, actually.
Their name is completely cheeky because this game came out on the Mega Drive / Genesis.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of the wonderful, playful spirit of that console.
Absolutely, and it's just a good game. It's just a good little short bonus game tacked on to 3 already amazing titles.
Again, it's like pre-DLC, but how DLC should have been done the whole time.
And my recommendation here is play it on the Switch, because if you have the Switch Online expansion pack, completely free.
Okay, dope. That is super nice.
The next game to come out was actually the other Game Boy game contracted out, called Megaman 2 for Game Boy.
So we have 2 versions of Mega Man 2.
2 versions of Mega Man 1, and that's going to continue all the way up to 5.
Okay, I'm gonna lose track, but that's okay. Let's go into it.
It's a lot easier. It's just, we have console, handheld. That's it.
Oh, that would make sense as to why they're completely different games until the handhelds got really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So this game is about Wily coming back from the future. So in that future timeline, he gave up.
Cool.
So it was peaceful, and he tried to rebuild a Mega Man to stop the Mega Man of the past. Ended up scrapping that and just outfitting Mega Man with some new high-tech armor and whatnot, set him loose, finished up their final program, named him Quint, sent him back in the past, and Mega Man destroys Quint.
So Mega Man beats his cheap copy from the future.
Yes.
Beautiful.
However, that future copy is now... That future copy that they stole and reprogrammed is still running amok on that timeline, but since that timeline never happens, because Wily never gave up, that timeline just ends up getting, like, halfway destroyed.
How does one halfway destroy a timeline?
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. It comes up way later on, but all that you need to know is it's more Mega Man, it's on the Game Boy, and my recommendation is pick it up on the Virtual Console. It is also very cheap for the actual, like, Game Boy, so easy pickup.
Fair enough.
The next game to come out was Mega Man 4. It happens a year and 2 months after Mega Man 3.
Okay.
So this game is just more Mega Man. He's now got a slide and a charge shot, but instead of Dr. Wily being behind it, he forced Proto Man, because Proto Man wanted to know about his core, basically bribed him and said, I won't do repairs on your core if you don't go steal this fellow scientist's daughter so we can blackmail him into plotting up against the world.
So it's a double blackmail. He's blackmailing you to get more object for blackmail.
Yes.
Cool. Great. Sounds like a stand-up gentleman.
So Wily steals Dr. Cossack's daughter, a Miss Kalinka Cossack, who some sources state is a robot. That is false. Kalinka is a human.
Neat.
Dr. Cossack is a Russian scientist who works closely with Dr. Light to be Russia and the United States ambassadors.
Okay.
And
this plotline got really Metal Gear all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, but it's pretty basic. Essentially, once Mega Man gets all the way up to Cossack, stops the 8 robots. One of the robots was not built by Cossack. It was Skullman. It was built by Cossack as kind of like, I'm not behind this. The guy with the skull motif is.
Gotcha. It's like this is the fall guy I built specifically for all of this, but it's not. No one believes him.
Yeah, no. Cossack built Skullman, being like, hey, if you get to me, if you piece this together, 8 robots, skull motif, giant castle, maybe it's Wily.
Gotcha. Maybe it's the same guy.
Maybe go save my daughter and don't come after me.
Fair.
And he gets there, and it turns out Proto Man just basically turned heel again, and took Kalinka out of Wily's custody, gave him back to Cossack. Cossack was charged after this game, and banned from robotics for a time, but he still helps out from moment to moment. And Dr. Wily ends up getting his ass handed to him again.
You know, there's a lot of people who really shouldn't be building robots allowed to build robots in this universe.
Yeah, so the thing is that if you ever take a look at Mega Man 11's opening screen, Dr. Wily kind of sort of started. If you take a look at the timelines together, Wily doesn't really turn evil until he gets up into like his 50s and 60s.
Gotcha. So he's like a really solid scientist for most of the timeline. It's not something you generally think about.
Yeah, he turns evil out of jealousy.
Gotcha. And because we have time travel going on, there's also a level of non-linearity to which version of him or his creations we are dealing with.
Kind of. We're not dealing with that much of a time shenanigans. Most of the timeline shenanigans are already done.
Gotcha. Okay.
He basically just jumped backwards, jumped forward, came back, done.
Gotcha.
But
we managed to avoid timeline fracture. We managed to fix it here, basically.
Yes, we're not like Sonic, where it's like, oh, this goes all over the place and screws everything up.
Oh, thank God. Okay, we're gonna be fine. Whew.
Yeah, Mega Man 4 here, though, it came out on the Legacy Collection, the PS1, all of that jazz. Once again, Legacy Collection, PlayStation 1, those are your best options.
Gotcha.
And that's going to be your best options all the way up through 6, so let's go ahead and go to the next game, which has never been pre-released.
Okay.
Wily and Light's Rockboard, or Wily Light Megaboard. It is... Have you ever played Fortune Street?
Nope.
You've played Monopoly, though, right?
Yes.
Monopoly with fancy boards and stocks.
What is this game?
So this game is a board game. It's kind of just its own thing. Some people consider it non-canon. I look at it and go, well, this is just Dr. Light, Wily, and Cossack trying to get funding.
It's the optional Grant jockeying minigame.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's canon. It's just not a big deal. As they're all trying to jockey to figure out who gets the most robot. That's beautiful. I like the explanation a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've explained it like that before, and somebody threw it back in my face and said, "That's dumb," and I'm like, "But it makes a lot of sense, don't it?"
I mean, for that kind of game, though, is dumb necessarily bad? No, that's exactly the kind of thing you'd see in those kinds of universes.
Yeah, I mean,
things do happen outside of the generalized game. I mean, even in Alien, we had that entire conversation before they divert the ship about, are we getting paid more for this? Completely banal before anything terrible happens.
Yeah, this is kind of just like, this is the end of some of our funding. Let's see if we can get them back, even though Wily's been messing with everybody's plans. Let's try to see if we can continue building robots.
This is the Grant jockeying minigame between everything else that's going on.
Yeah, and I do believe... Nah, never mind. I'll keep going with this for a second. So our next game takes place a few months after Mega Man 4.
Okay.
Mega Man Soccer.
Soccer?
So, this game is called Mega Man Soccer all over the place, from Europe, Japan, and the States, even though it's football from Europe, but soccer in the States. Essentially, the ending wasn't programmed properly, so it never actually shows up.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, luckily there's a Game Genie code that fixes it.
Okay, cool.
So all this is an SNES soccer game where you play as Mega Man. Wily took over the soccer stadium in a gambit to hold everybody captive so the world leaders will give him more money.
Okay.
And Mega Man just beats everybody by deploying copy bots and destroying, defeating Dr. Wily in a soccer match. For everyone's...
That's like beautifully Space Jam. I love it.
It's silly, it's goofy, but I mean, it works.
I mean, this sounds like a way more interesting plot than just any average FIFA.
It
I
was
honestly want like a soccer game with all sorts of random classic characters, but with like perfect physics in it.
this game doesn't have perfect physics, but I mean
Well, I
it
mean, you
is
can't have that in that era, but
no, but it's still a good Super Nintendo soccer game, and it was based on one of the Olympic games that Capcom had made.
okay, so it actually does have like era-appropriate, solid sports game backing.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
That's cool.
the thing is, this game has never been re-released. It hasn't been on Virtual Console. It hasn't been on any of the Legacy collections. It hasn't come to modern systems. It has stuck strictly to the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom.
Damn, it's one of them their collector's items at this point.
Kinda. I picked up my copy for I think $30.
Not bad, actually.
I see it go often loose Japanese copy for like $20, but there's really no Japanese text, so there's no reason to not pick it up.
That's fair. I'm kind of currently stuck in a land of like 300. Like I saw $100 to $300 for copies of Fatal Frame, but
That's
it's
crazy.
actually really good. Yeah, it's getting up there. Anyway, carry on.
So our next game is the next Game Boy title, Mega Man 3 for Game Boy.
Mhm.
Now I could have differentiated this because in Japan they're called Rockman World.
Okay.
So it's technically like Mega Man, Mega Man 2, Mega Man World, Mega Man 3, Wily Wars Mega Man 2, Mega Man World 2. So this is just Game Boy 3.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, there is an offshore oil company, and Dr. Wily has decided to take control of its oil base.
Okay.
He set out more robots to basically keep guard, and Mega Man has to stop that. Once he gets inside the base, it turns out that he was siphoning the oil so he could get, so that way he can build more robots.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been storing them in a space station just out of Earth's orbit.
Oh. So, massive amounts of robots in space just ready to land wherever.
Yeah.
That's not good. That's not good at all.
Luckily, once he gets to the bottom of the Mega Man gets to the bottom of the oil base, he defeats the second Mega Man killer, Punk,
Okay.
who is looks just as like punkish as you'd think.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Let me look this guy up real quick.
Oh yes, you're gonna love Punk so much.
Yes. There's something about a mohawk made of saw blade.
Oh yeah, he curls
It just
up. He
is.
can curl up with those two discs on his arm and roll at you too with those spikes.
God, there's so much great fan art of this guy too. Anyway, carry on.
Yes, but Mega Man 3, it's good, it's on Virtual Console, it's also on the original system. This is one where I have to say, after this point, for the Game Boy games, just go Virtual Console. It's the cheapest option, and I hope to God they get re-released someday, because this game can go upwards to $60 to $70.
Woof.
Oh yeah, it's a bit nuts. It's super difficult too. Our next title is Mega Man 5 for NES. It takes place 2 months after 4.
Okay.
So, for this game, Proto Man has kidnapped Dr. Light and sent out 8 robots to stop Mega Man.
Mhm.
So Dr. Light's been kidnapped by Proto Man, but that doesn't make any sense. Dr. Light made Proto Man, and Proto Man doesn't want anything to do with Dr. Light. Mega Man goes all the way out to this castle, only to learn, no, this imposter stole Proto Man's scarf,
What?
is actually using the hologram technology for Mega Man 2, and was built by Dr. Wily to basically disguise any of his nefarious deeds while trying to get rid of Mega Man.
Damn, okay. So does this guy count as a Mega Man killer?
No.
Okay.
So far we've only seen 2 of the Mega Man killers, and there's 3 of them total. But Darkman does not count as a killer, he is just mindless robot to do nefarious deeds.
Gotcha, so the Mega Man killers are specifically programmed to kill Mega Man, while the other ones are more just programmed specifically to do other things that might overlap with killing Mega Man.
Yes. So in
Gotcha.
this case, it was get rid of Mega Man and frame Proto Man, so that way then the law will have to hunt Proto Man down. And since a robot can't harm a human, and Proto Man has that pretty deeply ingrained in himself, he'll be easily caught, and nobody can foil his plan like he did the last 2 times. It didn't work though. Proto Man showed up, revealed the disguise, gave Mega Man an E-Tank, and then Rock went straight for Wily.
Yeah, that's kind of how that was gonna go the whole time, but, you know, nefarious villains very rarely have the best forward chaining options.
Once again, I'm going to recommend the PS1 and the Legacy Collection. It's your best bet.
Gotcha.
The NES copy goes upwards to $500.
Woo!
Yeah, this game was one of the last ones produced for the NES. It was also one that Capcom released in limited quantities because 4 didn't sell as well, and the Super Nintendo was just coming out.
Gotcha. It's like those very late PlayStation 2 titles that sometimes get a little expensive.
Yeah, but now imagine on the NES.
Yeah, we're getting up to Chrono Trigger levels.
Yeah. Now, the thing is that Capcom didn't want to release Mega Man 6 on the NES, but I'll get there when I get there. Well, let's reopen this real fast. Our next title came out on the PlayStation 1. It is called Super Adventure Rockman.
Okay.
It takes place sometime in the future. The comic books did an adaptation of this where it takes place back during Mega Man 3.
Okay.
Back before Mega Man 3. I figured it would take place a little further on because it just kind of fit. It just kind of feels after 5-ish. Essentially, there is an ancient alien that crashed on Earth years ago. The Mayans built a temple for it, and it has finally been found by Dr. Wily and activated. It is holding Wily captive, using his robots from Mega Man 2 and 3 to protect itself, and is slowly expanding a field of electromagnetic energy that shuts off all electronics.
So, we found the one thing that will absolutely surpass Wily, and it's using him to basically kill all robots and human civilization alike.
Yes.
Neat. Time to go kill an alien, then.
Yeah. So this thing has held him hostage for, I don't know, 2 months or so. Wily was working with Light years beforehand to detect this, and he just finally decided, yeah, I'm going to go and research this.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's always looking for sources of power. This ancient pyramid could be one, but oh no, its powers beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, and it's from space. So this thing has a protective droid known as Raw Thor. It looks a lot like Wily's own protective units known as the Yellow Devils. Or the Devil series. In Japan, they're called rock monsters.
Okay.
But they're like gooey mechanicalness things.
Weird.
Yeah. And I think, but this game only ever came out on the PlayStation and Sega Saturn, and it is an FMV game.
FMV question mark?
Full motion video. The entire thing was animated, and then you could play through sections where you were first person shooting your way through the game. And in between that were really awesome animated cutscenes that looked like they jumped straight from Toei Animation.
Cool. I mean, that kind of weird direction for the game to take, but I'm down with awesome animation.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing. It spans across 3 discs. There's multiple paths, multiple different bosses you can fight, multiple different power-ups you can get. By the end of the game, you'll have, I think, 15-ish powers.
Nice.
You get help out from the Mega Man 1 bosses. Also, the whole reason that you're going to do this is because Roll got injured by the electromagnetic field to the point where she's slowly being corrupted, and since no computers are really working, it could just straight up kill his sister.
Damn, okay.
Keiji Inafune considers this the worst Mega Man title simply because of how dark it gets.
Okay.
I consider it. It's fine. It's weird, but it's fine.
Just like one of those weird experimental offshoots that like everybody's like, this one's awful because it's weird, but it's not really.
It's not really awful, it's just different, and I think it's okay. And I think now is a perfect time that we introduce our first guest. So after this short break, I'd like to welcome Rick from the D-Pad for his awesome audio. Thank you again. Go check them out.
Nowadays, it's kind of easy for me to look back at the first 6 classic Mega Man games as kind of this giant blob of like one big game experience. They all kind of have this sort of similar feel to it. They all control the same. It's the same engine. It all has the same look, and they all kind of like blend together after a little while. But when I was a kid, I definitely played the first 3 of those 6 games a lot more than the latter 3. I went to my aunt's house to play Mega Man 2 all the time when I was, real little, but I didn't own it myself until, high school, along with basically all the other NES games. And the one that I liked the most growing up after that, I think would have actually been Mega Man 3. I feel like a lot of people go for 2, but something about 3 really stood out to me. I think the unconventional ordering of bosses and how the weaknesses all worked, and the dock robots being kind of a big part of that after you've beaten the 8 Robot Masters, going back into the stages again, but the stages are different, and now you've got these new Robot Masters that are based off of the Robot Masters from 2. It had this like really dense feeling to it, and I really kind of liked how much they shoved in there. It kind of reminds me of like Pokemon Gold and Silver, for just like, hey, remember the last game? We've got a bunch of that in here too. So I think it kind of represents a sort of creativity in the midst of like really strict guidelines as far as like how much space they had to work with and how much they could possibly cram into this tiny cartridge. And I think that the music is awesome as well, and it all kind of comes together as this nice like culmination of the first 3 games, and I think that that's really cool.
So after Rick Lovely told us about his feelings over Mega Man 3, let's continue where we left off with Mega Man 4 for Game Boy.
Okay.
This game really has some polish and some shine to it, but it is brutally difficult. This game is more of the same from previous. There's not a whole lot to it. The aliens from last time, not a big deal yet. No, not a real big threat. Wily has built his final Mega Man killer, though, Ballade.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good pun.
There's a lot of music puns all throughout this series. But this is also the final Game Boy game to reuse bosses.
Okay.
So after this point going forward, the next and final Game Boy game is going to have its own unique boss.
Okay.
But, yeah, no, 4 for Game Boy is pretty good. Once again, I can recommend the Virtual Console version. I cannot recommend anything else because it's just way too expensive.
Fair. I'm noticing also this like the Game Boy versions are the brutally difficult versions of Mega Man.
Yeah, the only one that's not is Mega Man 2 for Game Boy.
Gotcha.
That one is easier than everything else on this list.
Okay. Which honestly, that's not bad. I mean, brutally hard platformers are some of my favorite genres, so.
Minakuchi just had a love for the difficulty.
Gotcha. That's fair.
Mega Man 5 was the next one to come out. This one was wholly original. So, you remember the aliens from Super Adventure Rockman?
Sort of. These were not the ones in the pyramid. These were the other aliens.
These were the ones looking for that.
God, okay.
So these were basically worshipping that giant spherical thing known as Ra Moon. They are worshipping that as a god.
Oh. That's ominous.
Now that it's been destroyed, Wily has taken it upon himself to reactivate, fix these guys up, and also tell them, oh yes, I was simply trying to protect Ra Moon. As I see it's the thing, as I see it as a god as well. But then that blue boy came in and destroyed him.
Yeah, that's not gonna help with legitimacy here.
No. So, as Wily is fixing all 9 of these star droids, Terra decides to send 4 of them to attack the Earth, and then Light ends up fixing up Rush, Mega Man's dog, who I haven't mentioned up to this point, for space travel, allowing him to travel out and stop the 4 other star droids from destroying the Earth.
Okay. Oh my gosh, just looked up Rush real quick. He is incredibly cute.
Yes, this is also earlier on. There's also another animal from Mega Man 4, or no 5, known as Beat. He's a bird. He is made by Dr. Cossack. He is adorable. There is a little helper from 4 known as Eddie. He is a little. He's a dispensary. Basically, he can carry a large amount of objects inside of him and just kind of teleport them in wherever.
I freaking love Beat. Oh my god, he's beautiful in every way.
And the final new companion for this game is Tango the cat.
Oh,
He is a little ball of doom. And this is the only time we see him be a little ball of doom.
Does he come back later?
Yeah, he comes back in cameos, but he's not a fighter. He's a lazy, lazy cat. He also loves Proto Man. And
That's fair.
And often slips out of the lab just to go find Proto Man and hang out with him.
I mean, even though Proto Man he has kind of been a consistent villain up until now, or at least interloper, I can respect that. I understand. I like this cat.
I mean, Proto Man just kind of doing it because he has nobody else to help fix him up.
And I mean, he cannot act separate from his programming, as you said.
Yeah. But Mega Man stops the Star Droids, and the final one, known as Sunstar, ends up almost throwing Wily into the sun. Wily doesn't get thrown into the sun, and he makes it out okay, but Sunstar was going to destroy the entire galaxy because you destroyed its god.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot of mad. That's a lot of real deep mad.
And this isn't even the final time that we're going to see aliens, by the way.
Oh god. I mean, on the flip side though, I can absolutely understand the desire to throw Dr. Wily into the sun. It would solve a lot of problems, but
Oh yeah. But other than that, things go okay. Things go fine. Mega Man saves the day, teaches Sunstar about compassion, but all of the Star Droids end up getting destroyed. So
okay, probably for the best for at least now.
Yeah. This was also the last Game Boy game developed by Minakuchi Engineering. After this, they would make one more game later on, and then they kind of sort of got dissolved. They just couldn't find any other contract work, and none of their regular projects really fanned out very well.
I mean, fair. I mean, that just happens sometimes to businesses, and then all their talent goes to other locations, and that's okay.
Yeah. So 1 year after Mega Man 5, Mega Man 6 was released. The dastardly Mr. X ends up starting a robot tournament, and to figure out who the strongest robot is, and whoever made that robot ends up winning a bunch of money. It turned out that Mr. X was actually Dr. Wily in disguise, and Mr. X, the real Mr. X, was a supporter of Wily who was funneling him money so he could make his dastardly schemes.
I'm noticing a theme with Dr. Wily, where, it's not him, but it's my conveniently available scapegoat.
Yeah, so
I've been, making sure is perfect for this position the whole time.
Mr. X was actually ended up dying before this game began, so Wily was just kind of playing himself as a wealthy, rich billionaire with all of his money.
So it's like Batman, but if Batman was dead.
It's like Batman died, Robin got the money, and Robin was a villain.
Okay, this is intriguing. I'm concerned. This is intriguing.
But Wily now has basically enough funding to keep doing his stuff. He's built 4 robots tucked away, and he's basically pitted these robots that he didn't build, but he reprogrammed against the world, trying to hold them all kind of at ransom, because he wants to rule the world.
Since he didn't rebuild them, but he reprogrammed them, I do have to ask, is their behavior any different from, any of the other robots? Does reprogramming have an effect?
Most of them... So, the first games were reprogrammed and also modified. But these guys were built for combat for this tournament, or if they weren't built for this tournament, they were already modified for the tournament.
Mhm.
So stuff
Gotcha.
like Plant Man, who was a botanist, was modified for the tournament by his creator, so that way then they could, fight and win the tournament, so that way then they could get money for their research.
You have to have that combat botany. That makes sense to mod that in.
Yeah, you have to have the combat stuff so you can win the tournament.
Mhm.
This is also the last Mega Man game on the NES.
Mhm.
Capcom did not want to put this out in the States. Nintendo looked at them and said, we will cover all costs of putting this out. We will do our box art. We will go to the same person we went to before. We'll have slightly stricter guidelines. We'll translate and release the game in the West. And they did.
Hell yeah.
I actually own this game. This is the first Mega Man game I ever played.
Mhm.
And it is my favorite. It introduced the Rush adapters. It's best played on the Legacy Collection or the PlayStation 1. And honestly, up to this point, this is where I fell in love with the series.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm thinking about. I don't know why I just had said heck instead of hell because it's okay. But anyway, I personally really am thinking this is exactly why I need to get back into busting out my PS1 and get into that kind of gaming again. It's been too long, and you keep mentioning a whole bunch of titles like, what can I play on my PS1? I think it's time to get into Mega Man.
I would definitely say so. This is a perfect jumping in point. And at the end of the game, we get a to be continued right in the corner.
Ooh.
So they knew what they were doing.
Ooh.
Another thing that I should probably mention about Mega Man 6 is that it's also where Wily gets finally put in jail.
Wait, there were consequences for actions at some point?
At some point, yes. So Wily goes to jail, and then 6 months after that, Mega Man 7 happens.
Oh.
And we finally moved past the NES.
Just in terms of a timeline, we are finally done with the NES.
We are finally done with the NES. We are on to the Super Nintendo with Mega Man 7.
Woo!
So, those 4 extra robots that Wily built were programmed to, if Wily hadn't heard from them if Wily hadn't talked to the computer in 6 months, they'd reactivate, bust Wily out of prison, wherever they may be at, and then try to conquer the world.
So he had a dead man switch built in for a bunch of his robots, which would make perfect sense for an evil villain.
Yes, and it works out pretty well, because it gives him enough time to finish the other 4 he was working on, rob the robot museum, and build his final creation, Base, who is meant to rival Mega Man. Essentially, he found a gemstone that he wasn't found on the periodic table. He called it Basenium, and it allowed him to be more powerful than Mega Man. But his prime directive is just to be the strongest robot.
Gotcha. Which is... It is, from what I'm seeing on this character, it seems like he was programmed to, always surpass Mega Man, which in of itself kind of made him always kind of inferior to Mega Man, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He was programmed to be a Pokemon rival.
Pretty much. The thing about him, though, is that he thinks that he is the best robot Wily will ever make, so does not care after this point about trashing Wily's plans. Because the minute Wily loses here, Base just kind of says, I'm the best robot. I'll take you down when I feel the need to.
Right, because he was never programmed with the subservience to him in mind.
No, he was just programmed, be better than Mega Man.
Yep. Pro tip, remember what you're programming into things.
Exactly.
A computer will do exactly what you tell it to do, and including, screwing you over.
Base ends up robbing Dr. Light, combining with his own beast known as Treble.
Mm-hmm.
In Japanese, they are known as Forte and Gospel.
Not gonna lie, I'm liking this in sound motif.
Honestly, everything here is sound motif. Mega Man's non-combat form is known as Rock, his sister is Roll, his brother is Blues.
I see what they did there.
Beat, Treble, Tango, Rush.
I'm, again, finally beginning to notice a solid pattern here.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. But, Wily fails at that plan, and the next thing that happens is an arcade game.
Oh.
It's a smaller title. So Mega Man... hang on, before I go, because I forgot the meaning of this video. This game was released on the SNES, the Super Famicom, the Anniversary Collection, and the Legacy Collection 2.
Okay.
The Legacy Collection 2 had 7, 8, 9, and 10, and they are the way to play these.
Mhm.
The Super Famicom version is actually adds in some extra content. Also, Mega Man 7 was made in 3 months.
Did that impact its quality at all?
No, it is the best Mega Man game ever.
Damn, nice.
Inafune said he wishes he had even an extra week to work on it.
Damn, nice.
But the game was finished, it got put out, and it's pretty damn good. Like, it's got a great story, a lot of good secrets. It's fun.
Nice.
It's even got a Ghost and Goblins reference if you play Shade Man Stage and hold down the select button.
That's super cool, actually.
Yeah. But the next game is the Power Battles. This was an arcade 2v1 fighter where you and a friend could go up against bosses, and you basically just boss rush the entire game. There's no stages. It's just fight the bosses, beat the bosses. Super simple. It's just Robot Tournament, the game, and it's fine. You can play as base Proto Man or Mega Man. And it came out on the Anniversary Collection.
Okay.
It came out on a separate PS2 collection. It came out on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. And most recently in the Capcom Arcade Second Stadium. Which I can recommend the Neo Geo because it is just a wholly separate version. You can play that on Switch. It just came out on Switch not even a month ago.
Okay, that's cool.
For less than $7.
Oh, fuck, that's super good.
And it's also on the Capcom Arcade Collection, which I can also recommend because I believe it's only like $5 for each.
Okay, yeah, no, these seem like something you should absolutely pick up if you have any ability to.
Yeah, they're just fun, they're short, they're just really good. Really strange, but really good. And there's a sequel to it that happened later on. But the next game on our timeline is Mega Man 8, and this was for the PlayStation 1.
Okay.
So remember those aliens?
Yes, I'm concerned.
So, there was a battle raging out galaxies away, and it's finally starting to reach Earth.
Oh.
So
that ancient evil below the pyramid wasn't just one thing, but we are no longer a backwater because of it.
It was an ancient battle where they hid it on a backwater planet. They hid the big evil on the backwater planet, and now the good guys are starting to come towards, and there's not many of them left.
That's unfortunate.
So an evil robot, which that's all he's called, he's later given the name of Trio, and our main hero robot duo are fighting out in space near Mars, and they end up the evil robot ends up getting defeated, and the duo ends up getting defeated as well as they crash down into the planet onto Wily's secret island base. Wily wanted to know what was there. Mega Man said Dr. Light gets a signal in from there and say, hey, we don't know where this island is and we need you to check it out, whatever landed. Because it's not asteroid, it's something else. Wily ended up finding the evil robot, basically scavenging it for parts, and found 8 cores known as evil energy.
Okay. So these evil energies, are they like similar functions to, sorry to take back something else, but Chaos Emeralds? Insofar as they're like an misunderstood kind of energy?
It's more akin, so you know how we have like solar cores and nuclear cores in these robots?
Yeah, different kinds of cores.
So imagine a core that can power something, it can give it tremendous strength, but it can corrupt not only the robot, but also the creators.
Oh, that's
It warps the mind with
so
enough contact damage.
that's super scary.
Incredibly, and Duo was built to contain this.
Okay.
But Wily has all 9 of these cores, and now Wily's getting ready for his next big scheme, where he kidnapped 4 robots, reprogrammed them, and also finished building his other 4, as well as finished reprogramming Cutman and Woodman for Mega Man 1 and 2.
A lot of robots in very close proximity to these cores. I'm nervous.
Yeah, well, the 2 were Cutman and Woodman were just there to basically guard, because since they were reprogrammed, they were just there to guard whatever's
Okay,
around.
fair.
The other 4 were meant to harness and basically run tests with these evil energy, as Wily kept the last one for himself.
Gotcha.
As like a backup plan. Mega Man ends up finding Duo, repairing him with Dr. Light, and then they end up stopping Wily's evil scheme and finding the 8 evil energies, and yeah. Duo ends up collecting them and heading back out into space, but senses there's still one and is just kind of hovering there in the solar system looking for the last one. This game came out on the PlayStation 1, the Saturn, the Anniversary Collection, the Legacy Collection 2. Don't touch the Anniversary Collection. Input lag is ridiculous on this game.
Gotcha.
The Saturn version has 2 secret bosses, but it is expensive. Legacy Collection 2 is your best bet. There's
Gotcha.
barely an input lag, and it feels great to play, looks great to play. It's got a beautifully animated cutscenes. It's wonderful.
Marvelous.
So the game that came out right before this, but takes place half a year after 8, is Mega Man 2: The Power Fighters, which is the other arcade game. Same thing. The Neo Geo collection on the Switch and the Capcom Arcade Second Stadium is the best way to play this. But all it is basically Wily started another tournament thing. Duo showed up because he finally found where the last evil energy was and rips it out of the cold hands of Wily. Not dead, because he's not dead, but rips it out of Wily's clutches, and we find out that Wily is building a robot to surpass Base.
Oh. So it's like not another full-blown Mega Man killer, but something way up there in terms of something to surpass Mega Man.
Something basically to be like, I don't know when it's going to be done, but when it does, it's going to make Dr. Light look like an absolute idiot for ever doubting me in robot prowess.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Power Fighters is pretty good. Once again, another fun game. This one's got special moves too, so you can do like the Hadouken and Shuriken.
Gotcha. That's actually that's really, really cool, actually.
Oh, it's really awesome. The next game came out on the Super Nintendo. It was dubbed Mega Man 8.5. It's called Mega Man and Base, and it came out on the Game Boy Advance, the Super Famicom, and later on Virtual Console.
Okay.
It is hard as heck, and I would have to say the Virtual Console is probably your easiest way to play it. But just emulate this one. It's never been re-released other than that, so it's kind of tough for me to say, yes, just go play it like this. But Wily decided to think, okay, how can I convince Base to fight for me? I got it. Build a robot who believes himself to be the king of all robots, named King, and have him start a revolution. He thinks he took over Wily's base. He didn't. He thinks that he started this big old revolution. He just sent 8 new bosses out to fight Mega Man, and Mega Man and Base just end up absolutely destroying Wily's new castle.
So it's a matter of team up because this guy is Delusions of Grandeur, the musical.
Yeah, and then Wily ends up being like, oh, you think you can stop being my puppet king? No, you can't. Hits a button, and then he's kind of forced to do what Wily wants.
I mean, being programmed is a sucky thing, but that makes sense here.
Yeah. We end up finding out a couple things here. So that robot revolution that happens, that's going to happen again a couple times, but the next couple times it happens, it's not controlled like this, and it ends bad.
Ooh. Oh. It is not maintained, and stability doesn't end up well.
Yeah, so while Wily here is very good at maintaining his plans, so there's very few casualties, in the future, we're gonna see casualties. In the trillions.
Wow.
But we'll get there when we get there.
Whew.
Once again,
And you said the one with the pyramid was the dark one?
Yeah. Like I said, I think KG is a little bit crazy.
Okay, fair. We're moving on then.
Yeah. So, the next game on my list is a game titled Megaman Battle and Chase. There's a big old race happening. Roll ends up entering. Megaman ends up entering to figure out what's Wily doing. Wily ends up entering a bunch of his robots because he just wants the prize. And Base enters because he wants to prove Megaman wrong.
Okay.
The race happens, and I think Roll wins.
Damn, okay.
This is a PlayStation 1 game. It came out in Europe, it came out in Japan, and then when they wanted to come out with it in the States, they advertised it. Sony said, too many kart racers, no!
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, so that's one of those things where Sony shot it down. I don't know why, because they planned a whole bunch of stuff. They kept a hold
more
of...
games, more better, you know? Why?
Also, this is a kart racer where you can change the wheels, the body, the shape, the engine, all of that on the car by defeating other racers and taking their parts.
Damn, that's good.
Kind of like how Mega Man takes the special weapons of the bosses, and each race gets harder because they add more racers and they get a little bit more challenging each time. To be like, there's a subtle difficulty increase. Things are going to get harder. You're going to have to use different parts of other race cars to actually get through the stage.
That's actually a really solid thing I miss from this era of racing games. Of like, okay, it's not just about the cars. There's other list crap. I need to slot this in. I need to slot this in. I need to think about this. I need to think about this part. What do I need to get through this race? I like that.
It's got a wonderful soundtrack that's probably been playing over this entire video.
Mm-hmm.
And it did eventually come out over here in the States.
Nice.
It came out on a collection known as the Mega Man X Collection for GameCube, for GameCube and PS2.
Okay.
Pick this collection up just for this game alone. This collection is actually good.
Hell yeah, I love it when they are.
They brought it back in-house for that collection, and they had a bunch of stuff planned, but we'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
But this game is good. It has extra unlockable stuff. It's a good time all around.
Mm-hmm.
And our next game finally finishes up with the timeline shenanigans. You remember?
Okay.
So, you remember that failed timeline where there was an evil Mega Man running amok?
Yeah, where I talked about what the heck a failed timeline even means.
So, without a hero to protect it, with Dr. Light being kind of down in the dumps because he can't find either of his kids, and Mega Man having a new prime directive of be the strongest robot, most combat robots were kind of defeated, and Mega Man decided, enough of this. We're going to call him Mega Man Shadow from here on out, because that's the way the game refers to him. I'm going to go back and fix this. I'm going to fix this problem. Now, this timeline doesn't have very many robots left in it. It is pretty barren. There's no...
Just because of all of the, was that a result of the timeline itself forming, or just because of all the consequences they fought them each other to death?
Because of Mega Man fighting every robot to the death, the only things left are household unit robots like Stove Man, Camuso Man, who is a religious robot, Bullet Man, who is just happened to be one of the stronger fighting robots. Stuff like Air Conditioner Man, who's literally just an industrial strength air conditioner for massive units. There's just not many combat ready robots left, and Megaman has decided to hop from his timeline over to the main one.
Gotcha. So, like, Stove Man's not going to be up to this challenge.
Yeah, Megaman and Base get challenged because Rockman Shadow has absolutely no idea what his counterpart looks like in this timeline. And both of them end up killing him. And when asked, what did you get out of this? He just says, well, in my timeline, there was nobody strong enough to beat me. The only way for me to die was for my solar core to die, and Dr. Light built me too well. I won't die for millions of years, and I can't go on living like this. I wanted to die.
Okay.
So, Rockman Shadow literally came from the other timeline to end himself.
Damn, that's like super dark, actually.
Yeah, this game was released on the Bandai WonderSwan. It's never been re-released since, and even Capcom has never mentioned or referenced this game.
Again, this is seeming way more dark than Aztec Pyramid Land.
Yeah, absolutely. And this game's just never been referenced since. And some people who didn't understand the story decided to be like, it's the end of the timeline. I'm like, no, it's not. You're killing an alternate universe. They're called the Dimensions instead of
Yeah,
Robot
it's more of a
Masters.
dimensional merge. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, it's more of a dimensional merge, but it's just finishing up that loose end.
Yeah.
Which is okay with me, because it's also the final handheld title for this set.
Gotcha.
The next game to come out happens 4 years after Mega Man and Base Challenging for the Future. There was 4 years of peace.
4 years of Mega Man being chill. Everything's fixed.
Yeah.
Ish.
Wily decided to frame Dr. Light for reprogramming robots. Light let a bill pass he tried his darndest. Dr. Light let a bill pass that gave robots an expiration date. Certain robot masters were exempt, like Cutman, Woodman, Gutsman, stuff that would be useful for a long period of time. But stuff like Splash Woman, Tornado Man, they were all set with a set expiration date, and they knew their expiration date.
Damn.
Wily went to the scrap heap and said, hey, I can give you a new function, but you have to let me reprogram you, and you can't tell anybody that I'm the one behind this.
That's deliciously nefarious.
He does this. He convinces these 8 robots to do this because they want a longer lifespan. They want purpose. In fact, this is another one that was adapted into a manga and dubbed, and I want to send you the dubbed version because Cutman fights these bots and just says, their eyes, they're so sad.
Aww.
They are not happy about what they're doing, but they're doing it anyways. Dr. Light gets arrested, and Mega Man is told not to fight the robots. Mega Man disobeys and does it anyways, because he needs to save Dr. Light.
He cannot defy his programming. Ignoring that would be defying the programming.
Yep. Mega Man ends up beating the 8 bosses, showing that Dr. Wily is the one behind it, and even comes across this whole corrupted scheme where there are fake police bots made by Dr. Wily.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, nope. All aboard the nope train.
Yeah.
This is not good. This is not good at all.
He ends up putting a stop to it, and Dr. Light is set free. Wily is once again charged for prison, but he's not. He basically set a dead man switch off in his castle and was able to escape. Scot-free because of the fake police officer robot. But yeah, This game started something known as the Retro Revolution for the Xbox 360, PS3, and Wii eras, whereas more games started coming out that looked like 8 and 16-bit titles.
Super cool, actually. I like that.
Yeah.
I've actually really liked how the aesthetic came back in. I mean, I've always wondered if there was a little bit of an indie element to it, but I enjoy that there's also a mainstream part to it as well.
Oh yeah. And it's what's really nice is that these games came out, but they were scared that it was going to be lost forever because those shops were shutting down. Eventually, they're going to be gone. And then Capcom went and released the Legacy Collection 2 for these next two titles, Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10. They are forever printed on discs. You don't ever have to worry about them going away. And
Perfect.
They bundled in all of the DLC for 9 and 10 on those discs, as well as unlockable content.
Gotcha.
So, perfectly good. Once again, they shorten that price to less than $10 most of the time. You can get, 10 great games for $20.
Yes, I think I might need to look into this, actually.
The next game is Mega Man 10, and we're coming real close to modern day in terms of how far we're getting. Dr. Wily has created a virus, and it kind of backfired, and now the robots are running amok and imposing Wily's will on each other by basically just malfunctioning and trying to take over the world.
They don't understand their directives anymore, therefore bad things are going to happen.
Yes. Wily ends up making a cure with Dr. Light because, Wily has to, and Light has no other choice. He doesn't understand this virus. Wily's the only one that does. Mega Man stops the 8 major bots that are malfunctioning. Some of them were Light's robots, some of them were Cossacks, some of them were just randos, but they're taken care of now. And Wily went back to his base the minute he could. The minute he saw it was safe, he went back to his base, took the formula for the cure, and started mass producing it.
Gotcha. Which is, thank you. Woo! I'm gonna get out of this, okay.
But he's holding it ransom. So Mega Man heads up to the top of the tower, out into the outer limits of space, and defeats Wily, only to learn that he actually got a cold. So Wily couldn't escape and ended up going to a hospital.
Okay, that's funny. That's incredibly funny.
He left behind all of the cure for this virus, but managed to escape.
I mean, damn. But the fact that it was a common cold just is ridiculously funny, and I love it.
Oh yeah, and he left the cure for the Robo-Enza virus, so it's no longer a problem. It will be a problem in the future, but not now. And now we come to one that people are going to fight me on.
Okay.
So this game is called Street Fighter Cross Mega Man.
Oh?
This was a fan game, officially endorsed, licensed, and published by Capcom for the PC. It is 100% free. People argue that it's not canon. I argue that it's all a training exercise.
Huh.
You fight the World Warriors from Street Fighter 2 because there's nothing saying the Street Fighter 2 World Warrior Tournament didn't happen. And you end up, training, learning, growing as a character. There's really not much of a story. You defeat Shadow Lu. The end. I see it as a training exercise that happens 2 months after Mega Man 10. There's no other way to play it than PC. I want people to start backing this up, though, because Capcom's website is starting to glitch out for some people, and now it's getting harder to get this game, and it's 100% free.
Everybody download it now before anything bad happens.
Yeah, back it up.
But this is a fan game, so, the canosity of it is in question.
It's in question, but I count it because Capcom licensed it, published it, and gave them money so they could finish it.
I mean, that legitimizes it enough in my mind, and you should absolutely check it out then. I mean, you should have actually checked it out regardless of whether or not it was legitimate. This sounds like an amazing project.
Oh, it's really fun. And their final 2 games came out 8 years after Mega Man 10. So for 9 and 10, Mega Man did not have a charge shot or a slide. It's explained in 9 that it's been too long since Wily attacked he legitimately just deactivated a bunch of his programming.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't need it. He didn't need the gun. He didn't need to charge shot. He didn't need the slide. He just didn't need that mobility. Mega Man 10 rolls around. Wily has thought back, had a nightmare about his past, and remembers something called the double gear system that he created so robots could be stronger and faster than humans, so they could be respected in the workplace.
Okay.
This was shot down and seen as too dangerous by Dr. Light, which they then went ahead with his AI project.
Okay.
Wily helped out reluctantly with that AI project and scrapped the Double Gear project, but was furious with Dr. Light, and this is what kickstarted the whole feud.
Gotcha. Way back in the day.
Yeah, but it's finally come back to him. It's finally in the forefront of his mind. He's got more than enough time to speed up his capsule, his flying saucer capsule thing, steal Dr. Light's robots. He has plenty of time to use the speed gear, reprogram and combat all of these robots in a matter of mere seconds, and send them out there with the double gear system. All the while, Dr. Light was just running routine repairs on these robots, and Wily just kind of stole them. Dr. Light...
I mean, that makes sense for him. I'm noticing a theme.
Dr. Light ends up saying, okay, if you're going to fight this time, I need you to be equipped with the double gear system, but there's going to be a warning. If you use this too much, you're going to overclock yourself to death.
Damn.
Mega Man uses it wisely, ends up upgrading it a couple times throughout the story, and now there's a new mechanic. Not only is there charge slide, but you also have a thing that slows down everything around you and speeds you up, and another one that lets you shoot so many shots and charge shot, do the double and triple charge shots. Essentially, you just super powerful. And this game came out on PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and PC.
I have a question for you. Does the double gear ever actually overclock anybody to death?
If you use it too far, it'll actually overheat, and you will, you'll end up, you won't be able to use it for a while, and your shot will be down to just one shot.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't really, extend itself. Otto ends up using it near the end, and it overclocks him to the point where he just kind of flumps over. He gets repaired and fixed, but it doesn't do anything too bad, but it is a little bit dangerous. It's like overclocking your PC. It's dangerous, but you can do it.
Make sure you have the adequate cooling kind of vibes.
Exactly, and you end up getting upgrades all throughout. And our final, but this is one where I can say the PC version is your way to go, but you could play this one on literally anything.
Honestly, if the PC version is the way to go, is this a good entry to the series? As someone who is currently PC restricted?
As an entry point to the series, this is your best bet. There is no need to know the lore. You just need to know Mega Man's a hero, and he's going to go stop Wily. It's got a super casual mode, a newcomer mode, normal mode, and hard mode. And it's
nice.
It's got an alternative acoustic soundtrack as DLC that's completely free. It's got challenges, boss rush, time rush, jump saver mode, and even something called the Dr. Light Challenge, which is a room of 30 difficult challenge rooms.
That's super cool. I like this. I might pick this one up then.
It's super cheap right now. It often goes on sale for... It's recently gone on sale for $7. But when it came out... It came out, and when it came out, Capcom even said, this is a budget title. This is only $20 to $30.
You know, I like it when they have games that are like the big, epic, overarching ones, but they also understand that, like, sometimes we don't need all that much game. Let's sit right here. So I might actually look this one up. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. But that is our final mainline entry for today. The next game that came out is a VR Japanese exclusive for arcades.
What?
So this was a they hooked up a VR into arcades and made Mega Man: The Targeted Virtual World VR.
Okay.
You play through a training mission of Mega Man learning how to use the double gear for Mega Man 11. And it's in VR, and it's first person, and you could shoot with the thing, and it runs on the Valve Index, but it's not on PC or console or anything like that, which is really annoying because I really want to play it.
I mean, yeah, this one sounds amazing, actually, but we'll get there when we get there. We'll probably have a port one day.
Maybe. So, we've been through the entire main series. There's a couple games that I have not mentioned because they have little to no story and are not canon in most cases.
Sure.
So, let's just speedrun of these. There's Mega Man for Game Gear.
Okay.
It's a hybrid of Mega Man's 4 and 5 from NES for the Game Gear, and it's not good. There's no story. You end up going through the Cossack Citadel, but fighting Wily at the end. Some of the stages are redone for Mega Man 2, and all that it says is, once you defeat Wily, the ship explodes, and it says, "Congratulations," and you get fireworks. It's simple, it's easy, not worth the time, and it's never been ported. It also was made by US Gold, which is a European company.
Okay, what? A lot of what going on here? A lot of this doesn't sound like a good time.
It's mixed. It's essentially what you would expect when you say, hey, the Game Gear's not doing great, and we're putting a Mega Man title on it. Alright, who's the lowest contract bidder?
F in the chat for this game.
Also, this game is over $1,000 if you want a physical copy. There is no reason to buy it.
Or serious collector edition, please no.
Yeah, there's no reason. You can emulate it just as easy. No point in owning it. Other than that, there was Mega Man for DOS. This was one of the interns at Capcom US was working on programming for DOS and said, hey, I like Mega Man. Can I make a DOS port? And US branch said, go for it! And he made it and put it out, and it's 4 levels long, and it sucks, there's no music, and don't play it.
Oh god. Newbie Mistakes, the musical, except without music.
Yeah, and then a year later, because Mega Man 2 was out, they released the next one, which was Mega Man 3 for DOS. Same guy. This time with 6 levels, still no music, and the stage design is worse because he wanted every stage to feel like an open-world adventure.
Oh no.
So every stage is like an open-world Metroidvania, and it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that work, but I wouldn't choose that for Mega Man.
Yeah, and also, this is right around the time Mega Man 3 was coming out on NES.
Yeah, there's no way to make that work with that level of technology either.
Yeah, there's just no reason to really play it overall. I kind of lumped the 2 DOS games and the Game Gear game into its own section because none of them really have a story and they're all super silly. And if Wily dies at the end of Mega Man for Game Gear, then I can write off all 3 of those games as being a weird anomaly.
Maybe that is what happened in the alternate timeline now.
I wish that'd be something.
Something to go on.
Yeah, other than, well, it happened. The other 3 games are Mega Man Code Legends, which recently came out here to the States. It's an Amazon exclusive title that you have to order. It teaches children how to program using Mega Man.
That's ridiculously specific. I'm not upset, but that's really, really specific as a title and use for this particular genre. Was it any good?
It's incredibly good as a teaching tool. It's, honestly, Capcom loves seeing the fan games that get put out. I don't know if you've ever seen the Resident Evil 2 remake that fans were working on, where they cease and desist them and then said, hey, we're giving you tickets to Japan, come look at our offices and take a look at the early version of Resident Evil 2.
Okay.
Capcom loves their fan projects. Capcom loves their fans. But some things they have to shoot down, so, like, you know, this is Code Legends telling them, hey, use Code Legends, learn how to program, and make your own Mega Man game.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. It's got like a motion-controlled controller with it that you can put pieces on to make it program and act weird. It's fun. It's a PC title. It came out in 2019. It's a whatever. Our next three are... I don't even want to say the next...
You don't have to if you don't want to. If they're that bad, you don't have to include them.
I don't have to include them, but I'm going to include them for thorough sake.
Mhm.
China released 3 Mega Man games for PC.
Okay.
Rockman Gold Empire, which was essentially a board game.
Okay.
More Monopoly, and it was not good.
Damn.
It was Monopoly plus sim building. All of these used pre-rendered graphics, by the way, that don't look very good.
I hate that kind of thing.
Rockman IQ, which I think that was either X or Classic, but I'm lumping it all together because my brain hurts. Once again, more pre-rendered ridiculousness. Or no, this was just Classic. Okay. Rockman IQ, once again, PC, it was a math and logic question game. It's not very good. And this last one, and once again, these have never been re-released. This last one's called Rockman Strategy.
Is it like a real-time strategy game then?
Yes.
Okay, I'm a little bit concerned because
It's actually...
platformer does not translate to real-time strategy.
It is a good game.
Oh, neat.
However, don't try to run it. Don't try and buy it. Don't play it. Because it's not worth it.
Is it just too janky, it doesn't run well on PC or whatever?
Windows 95. Trying to run on nowadays.
Oh.
So, here's my story with this game, and I need to tell this story all the way through before we get to our final game for the day.
Okay.
So, our guest speaker for this section was Rick from the D-Pad. He has a full playthrough of this game on his YouTube channel. Go check it out. However, the audio for that did not play. Here is what I ended up doing because I care deeply about my friends and I loved his channel, watching it back then, and I still do now. I decided to take it upon myself with a Windows XP machine to buy the game, import it from China, and then reverse engineer the code. So I could figure out where all the music went. The music no longer worked, but I could see where it went. From there, I spent the next 78 hours reverse engineering that for every single song in the game so I could list, label, and send it to him.
That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of effort.
It was a lot of effort. It was worth it. But I never want to do it again. This game is a pain to work with. The code is a jumbled mess, and I never want to play it. The English translation is not good. It is not a good game. It is an alternate timeline taking place after 8 with more crazy aliens. And I will never go past that.
Oh, damn. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was a stupid 17-ish year old.
Damn. I mean, congratulations on being able to extract the music, but there are a lot of things that just straight up will not run on modern hardware, which is why they cannot be recommended, and that just sucks.
Yeah, I do not recommend that. Our final game for the day is a Mega Man cameo game for the Dreamcast called Cannon Spike.
Okay.
You're on roller skates, and you shoot zombies. You can play as Mega Man, Guile, Captain Commando, and the little red BB Hood from Darkstalkers.
That sounds so fun.
It is an absolute blast as a twin-stick shooter. Cannot recommend it enough. Do not try and buy a physical copy. It is way too much money.
Fair. How well does it run in emulation?
Fairly well.
Okay, sweet.
So, that's it for games for the classic series. I could go into other alternate timelines, like the comic books. I could go into stories like the mangas. I could do the silly anime cartoon stuff, but that's for another video and another time.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Eventually, whenever we get there. However, to jump us into the next series, our next guest speaker, Reploid Revo, has graciously I graciously asked Reploid Revo to come onto the channel and say his piece about the best way to play Mega Man X. So take it away, buddy.
Hey there, thanks for having me on. I think my favorite X game has to be X1 and X4. I love many of the games, but these two are the ones I have had the most experience with. Probably because for many years, they were the only ones I ever had. My preferred way to play X1 is either on original hardware or via emulation. To be honest, I mostly play X1 via emulation these days because it is simply easier to load it up on my PC. I have access to emulator tools like Rewind and save states if I want to experiment with stuff, built-in cheats, and all of the other benefits of playing around with your ROM. I especially love using the X1 randomizer that is only made possible via emulation. It remixes a game I am super familiar with into a crazy and challenging experience. I actually own both X Legacy collections and would love them to be my preferred ways to play the game, as I fully believe in supporting the official release. But those games run with a bit of noticeable input lag, and it was so repulsive to me during my first time playing it that I immediately stopped and switched to an emulator where the input lag was simply not there. I tried with X4 as well, but that had the same issues, so unfortunately, emulator or original hardware is my preferred way. I only use the Legacy collections to play X7 and X8, something that I rarely do anyway. If they could fix the input lag issues, then I'd switch right back to the Legacy collection. Regarding X4, I sometimes play the Japan region Saturn version of the game, as I own a Sega Saturn. Sometimes it's just fun to play a different version of the game that I am already so familiar with. Seeing some of those additional graphical effects on the Saturn are just different enough to make it interesting. So overall, while I play on the emulator for convenience, I would definitely say original hardware is the way to go. It just teleports you back to the 90s to sit on a couch and look up at your TV, controller in hand, rather than staring at your PC setup all the time.
Alright, so are you ready to jump to the future, Argent?
Maybe? I'm not sure.
Alright, so there are...
After everything in Classic, I'm a little bit nervous about the future, but I'm interested to see where this will go.
So, we jump ahead to a... There is a well-documented booklet known as Dr. Kane's Journal. Dr. Kane is the archaeologist who finds X. He is fascinated with Thomas Light's research, and it has everything leading up to the first rebellion.
Oh.
Dr. Kane is the founder of the Reploid, robots built off of this new prototype robot from Dr. Light. And the first one ever created was Sigma, a creation to basically protect humanity alongside X. However, along with the X project, Sigma was sent in to find another laboratory in a secret base in the middle of nowhere and found a robot named Zero, where they had a massive conflict and something problematic kind of went down, and then a couple months later on June 4th, 21XX, we get our first game, Mega Man X, or its remake, Maverick Hunter X for the PSP.
Okay. So what kind of weird thing went down? Was it just like, did they fight, or...?
So Zero has a conflict in data. So Wily, in his old age, remember how I mentioned there was a robot to surpass base? That would be Zero. Zero was given the abilities to think and feel and act of his own accord, but knowing what happened with King and other machines like it, Wily wanted to get that under control and have his influence right then and there. So he infected Zero with a virus. And that virus caused him immense pain anytime Zero was looking to stop fighting.
Interesting.
Well, Sigma ended up smashing the crystal on his head and basically infecting himself with that virus. But instead of fighting that virus, he gave in. And instead of... up to this point, there were already robots prepared who were, some were acting and getting corrupted and messed up, so they were called Irregulars in Japan and Mavericks in the States, at which point they would basically be dealt with by the quote-unquote Maverick Hunters.
Okay.
But this virus forces the one to go Maverick. It's
Gotcha.
an evolution of the virus that I told you about in Mega Man 10.
Okay.
And with robots being able to think and feel and act of their own accord, some of them may see being Maverick as the natural next step, as Sigma does.
So Sigma intentionally gets this particular virus?
He didn't intentionally. His only goal was to capture and seize Zero and see what makes him tick, because he's the only robot that they had found that is that old alongside X.
Oof. So yeah, he was just trying to be more of an archaeologist, a little bit less of a villain then in some way, and got infected and went a little bit crazy.
And since he was the leader of the Maverick Hunters up until that point,
yeah,
he just took a whole bunch of his team with him and starts this first rebellion, as it's known, and kicks off our first game here.
Okay.
X, goes out on his own to try and stop this, but Zero, who had since been fixed and basically was quote-unquote cured of the virus, but you find out that no, the virus just kind of subsided inside of him.
Is there any cure to it?
Is there any what?
Cure?
Eventually.
Ooh, okay. Not right now.
Not right now. This is just getting started. And so with this game, it came out on the Super Famicom and the Super Nintendo. It later had a DOS port, which isn't bad. A PS2 port on the X Collection, which you're going to hear me reference a lot during this video. The PSP remake, Maverick Hunter X. It was released again on Virtual Console, as well as iOS, which was later taken down.
Damn.
And the X Legacy Collection, which is another one you'll hear a lot throughout this. My personal recommendations: pick up the X Collection if you want to play Battle and Chase, or if you're at all curious. Pick up the X Legacy Collection just because it is the most recent way to play it. And there's also the PSP game, Maverick Hunter X, which is a beautifully done remake. I cannot stress enough how amazing it is. They did whole new anime cutscenes and full voice acting for the entire game.
Damn, okay. That is... I was about to say, based on the number of places and, collections it's on, this is probably one of the better ones.
This is one of the best Mega Man games ever created. It's hard as nails, yes, but it is really good. And its whole underlying theme of what makes a human is one thing that's really underlined in this series, and it starts to become the forefront of the games going forward. Now I could say right off the bat, I have to mention the X Legacy Collection is not your best way to play it. It's just because the X Legacy Collection was run on emulation for most of the games. So that and the X Legacy Collection 2 both have input lag on most of the games.
Gotcha.
It's not too bad if you're not paying attention, but if you're real susceptible to that, probably just emulate the games. But I would still say pick up the X Legacy Collection just to support the series.
Gotcha.
And then throughout this game, you get all the way to the end. Zero contacts X and says, hey, we found where he's hiding out on this floating island in the middle of the ocean. we have to go there and stop them. And so they do. However, they end up coming across a previous hunter that they worked alongside named Vile, who ends up killing Zero in the process, and Zero ends up giving X his buster, because X has something known as the X variable system.
What is the X variable system, just out of curiosity?
So, alongside X, you notice that red gem on his head?
Mm-hmm.
That allows him to adapt to certain situations.
Okay.
So, in Toon, he can basically change his buster type, he can change his helmet type, his armor type, but he needs information and data on it first. It's an evolution on Classic's variable weapon system. So, on top of copying powers, he can get armor upgrades and health upgrades, and in the case of this final stage, if you show up without the buster part from Dr. Light's capsule, you get Zero's buster.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. That makes... Okay, so it's a very, like... Again, the new type of Mega Man would obviously have, again, variable programming to attack and to deal with various different kinds of threats.
Yeah, the thought was that there was no... Dr. Light wasn't sure what kind of world X would be waking up to. With all of the fighting going around in the classic days, it was unlikely that he would wake up to a peaceful world, but he did. And his buster wasn't used very much at first, but then once new robots came out and defects started happening, and people didn't realize that you can't just treat these robots like any other machine. They feel things. They know things.
Hey guys, they're people. Be careful.
Pretty much, yeah. And so here's a buster, and adapt. Luckily, Dr. Light didn't leave long just that. He also left along a bunch of capsules for X to learn from, get data from, information from, and eventually along the way, he started imbuing himself as an AI into some of these capsules.
Okay, so are these like directly connected to him, or like separate versions of him?
They, as far as X is aware, they are just recorded messages.
Okay.
As we find out later on, though, it's more of recollecting Dr. Light so he can help guide the future.
Oh.
Essentially, it's X's conscious.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Which brings us to our next game, X2, which... Before I get started with that, I should state, some game... or no, not yet. X2. I'll get to the other stuff I want to mention. But X2 happened 6 months after the first game, in December of that year. A new band... so with Sigma stopped, it seems like things are dying down, but X is still out there stopping Mavericks, and has become the new commanding officer-in-chief for the Maverick Hunters. He doesn't like this job. He doesn't like that he has to fight. X is by nature a pacifist.
Gotcha. He'll adapt to fight, but he does not want to.
Yeah, and with his best friend dead, he really doesn't want to fight. But once he gets to his most recent outpost, it turns out that 3 bandits calling themselves the X-Hunters have kidnapped Zero.
Oh.
They have the body parts and are basically taunting him. Hey, come get us. Come stop us. Because if you don't stop us, we're gonna put him back together.
Yeah.
And they already built a new body for somebody we'll keep seeing throughout this game.
Okay.
So
And I know who...
I'll tell you in a little bit.
Okay. I was curious if you're keeping that deliberately behind the veil.
Yes, I'm keeping it behind the veil to keep the mystery going. X basically goes out, stops the 8 bosses, stops the 3 X-Hunters, manages to track them back to their base where they have been monitoring the whole situation.
Mhm.
They've been kind of controlling the Mavericks, which seems a little weird because you can't really control something that's not in your control.
I mean, yeah, but there is this virus thingy which sort of helps enough, you know?
But nobody knows about it yet.
Gotcha.
Uh, well, as it turns out, along with the virus, Sigma had implanted his own consciousness onto the virus. He sees human life as a weakness in machines. He sees machines as the next step in human evolution.
Gotcha, one of those types.
And he wants to eradicate humans by any way
Yeah.
necessary, and he sees the fastest way of doing that is by spreading this virus and making himself implanting his own consciousness on all of these machines.
So yeah, he's got this hive mind approach to all of these machines going, which is both terrifying and for them. So he's basically killing all of the humans and the machines at the same time by doing this technically.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Time to kill this guy.
Yep. So they built a new body for him. X manages to get all of the parts of Zero, and they manage to put him back together and even upgrade him with new shoulder pads and a new saber, similar to Sigma's.
Nice.
This game released on the Super Nintendo, the Super Famicom, the Virtual Console, the X Collection, and the X Legacy Collection. I'm once again going to recommend the X Collection and the X Legacy Collection. Of course, you can just emulate this one too. Super Nintendo emulators are out there. They do work. They're
Yep.
not bad. This was the last X game released by Capcom for the Super Nintendo, but it's not the last X game on the Super Nintendo. If that makes sense. It's the last one made by the main team.
Gotcha. Just like kind of a handed off to HAL Laboratories situation, but different teams.
Yes. And with that all wrapped up into a bag, you kind of get this. Now we have our two heroes, X and Zero, and our big bad villain, Sigma, who is this virus monster thing that is just ravaging through different robots.
Mhm.
But people now know he's a virus and can stop him, right?
Hopefully.
Except he has the same evolution as X, so perhaps not.
Gonna take a little bit then.
Yeah, so Reploid means replicated android. So from X, these are all replicated machines. They have similar parts to X.
Mhm.
One of those things is the ability to adapt. And this isn't going to come up very much, but until about the end. By the end, you'll see that, oh, they are starting to adapt. But by that point, they kind of dropped it, and I'm really hoping they pick it back up, because we need an answer.
Gotcha. Just a little bit of a loose thread in the plot and the canon.
Yeah. So our next game is a Game Boy Color game called Megaman Extreme. By this point, Minakuchi Engineering was out of the picture, so they weren't available to make this one, so Capcom had to make it in-house. And for that reason, it became one of those delightful little entries that I think is just, like, perfect. It's kind of a window into what would Mega Man X be like on the NES.
Okay.
I
respect that.
It's a cuter, smaller title. The main plot is the Hunter base computer has been hacked, and it has a whole bunch of data on previous Mavericks fought, where they were fought, how the combat data was.
Mhm.
They need to know who hacked it. And the answer is there were two machines made, one Techno, one MIDI, and MIDI was sent in as a double agent, but he didn't really agree with the plan, and Techno said, screw it, I'm hacking that.
Okay.
Or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know, they're twins.
I'm seeing purple and green here, but it's still not enough data to get them apart frequently.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, by the end of it all, it turns out that, yeah, they found out where the Sigma virus is being hosted, but it is jumping between bodies, and that's not good.
Mhm.
X goes into the computer, and it's a big old game where you replay stages and fight old bosses, but on a smaller screen. It's fun. It's cute.
Yeah.
That's
Nice,
all.
nice.
I don't really have a whole lot to say on this game. It's just good. It came out on the Game Boy Color and also the Virtual Console on 3DS. It hasn't been re-released since. My best bet is Virtual Console or emulate, and that's going to go for its sequel, Extreme 2, but we still have a game and a half to go through.
Yep.
So the next thing that happens is a comic called Megaman X Mega Mission 1.
Wait, there are comics?
There are comics. There are 4 mangas. They were released with cards. They were made by Bandai.
Nice.
There was supposed to be a English release of these comics. However, that got delayed due to COVID, and it's still not out 4 years later.
Damn.
Despite the comic being printed, done, and ready to go, but it was supposed to be a full-color version of the comic. Luckily, there's an English translation out there, but this is not going to tie into the story of the next coming games very much.
Mhm.
It does set up our next big villain, Dr. Doppler,
Oh?
but we'll see more of him in literally the next section.
Mhm.
All that you need to know about Mega Mission 1 is that he creates a living parasite that can
Living parasite?
that can replicate robotic parts,
Oh.
and it grows sentience.
So what does it parasite on? Like,
It latches on to X's chest and just kind of conforms to his body for a bit. And then eventually it starts controlling his body. Zero slashes the back of it, and they think it's all done because it looks dead, it acts dead, it scans dead, and then it morphs into a green version of X known as Return X or IX.
Oh.
Yeah, we're not going to see this guy in game, sadly, but he is referenced, and the cards have all been scanned for the X Legacy Collection, so I count it.
Okay. So there is this, like, parasite clone version of X just chilling out there somewhere. He's also sentient.
Yeah,
That's unsettling.
a lot. But our next game involves Dr. Doppler, so let's start several months after X2. We get X3 on the Super Nintendo, and Minakuchi Engineering's final game.
Okay.
They had a good run. 5 Game Boy games and the main X series game. That ain't bad.
No, not bad at all.
This game involves Dr. Doppler finding a cure for the Maverick virus and starting his own utopia for robots and humans. Except his cure for the virus, in his search for the cure, all he managed to do was infect himself because he is a Reploid.
Oh, so this isn't actually a cure.
No, it sits dormant now in these people who have taken this cure and can activate at Sigma's will.
Nope. So everyone's a sleeper agent in this city.
Yes, and nobody realizes it.
Oh god, this is gonna get party. This is gonna be one hell of a very bad party.
Well, they got a call out there for X to head out that way because it seems like there's danger, and if it's a city full of infected people, that's terrible. So X rushes out with Zero and ends up finding that the entire place, the Maverick Hunter base there, was under attack.
Oh?
Yeah, so all of the sleeper agents kind of acted at once to lure out X, because X is the only one who can fully handle this. Because he's handled 3 of them in the past, of course he's going to be able to handle it again. Dr. Doppler sends out his own assistants, Bit and Bite, and a resurrected vial.
Resurrected?
they put him in a new body.
Okay. Right, robot consciousness. You can just swap it like that.
Yeah.
Damn.
And this body is blue. It's cool. Also, one thing I should reference. So, these machines can think and feel and act. Another thing is that they can ingest food.
Okay, so they can derive energy from, like, normal people food.
Yes. And that's not really necessary to know, but it's really cool to know when I tell you that Vile is often depicted with a shot glass of bourbon.
Excellent.
And even his little figure, I have a little figure of a lot of the Mega Man characters. Vile always comes with a shot glass of bourbon.
Excellent.
So
That is excellent.
this game was... So, this game then came out, Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, but then had a upgraded port for the PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn.
Okay.
Then it came out on the X Collection as the PlayStation 1 version.
Mm-hmm.
Had a PC DOS version, which was a downgraded version of the PlayStation 1.
Okay.
The SNES version was then re-released on Wii U and 3DS under the Virtual Console label. And then the X Legacy Collection used the Super Nintendo version because it was easier to emulate.
So, this is a definite question of which one of these would be best to play.
So, personally, if you have a PlayStation 2 lying around or a GameCube, the X Collection is my personal go-to because I love the anime cutscenes and the remixed music.
Okay.
The X Legacy Collection isn't bad, and I would have to give it up to either one of those two versions. But once again, if input lag is not your thing, just emulate it. It's okay. But throughout the game, you end up going all the way through this city and finding Dr. Doppler has spent a lot of time rebuilding bodies for Sigma. Like too many, like a army amount of...
That's a lot of bodies.
Yeah, that he can just quickly swap to.
Are they, like, all connected? Can you use them all at once?
No, but he can switch between bodies if one's destroyed.
It's a lot of Sigmas to fight through.
And a lot of them go missing. Yeah, so Bit and Byte end up combining, becoming a crazy machine. You fight Vile again. Zero gets injured, and X gets the Z-Saber. Later on, Dr. Doppler is able to break out of the virus for just enough to put an actual antivirus into the sword.
Nice.
And you're able to contain the Sigma virus in Dr. Doppler for just enough time for X and Zero to get out of the crumbling castle.
Mm-hmm.
But Sigma's still missing, and Dr. Doppler is still missing as well.
And he's gotten a big dose of exposure to the virus.
Like a giant wireframe head in his chest now.
Oof. Yeah, there's F in the chat for him.
Yeah.
I take it if we see him again, he's gonna be
big bad.
not so nice. Yeah.
And the next thing that happens is the Mega Mission 2. It's called Versus Revenge Limited. So that version of X that was like a virus thing is now trying to kill them because it wants to know its purpose.
I mean, that's a mood, but it's not a reason to kill people.
No, it's not. And Dr. Doppler is trying to capture it, and X and Zero end up fighting it again and trying to find Dr. Doppler and looking for clues. And within their search, they end up coming across a small island off the coast.
Okay.
Home to a bunch of different Reploids who have all gone missing and are mysteriously dead because they washed up on shore of this island.
So missing dead Reploids on this particular island, after everything else with Sigma.
Yeah, and there's this lady called Burkana and her two henchmen, who she looks like a witch. You can look up what she looks like, but she literally looks like a classical witch. And she is harvesting the souls of dead Reploids. They're called DNA souls, I believe. Early games just called them souls.
I mean, so they got DNA, they got souls, and there are people out there who still don't think they're people.
Yes. I guess because you can't quantify or capture or consume a human soul, but you can do that to theirs.
Wait, so because they have a measurable soul, they're less human? What?
Apparently, all that you really need to know about this game is that it's another Game Boy Color game, came out on the Virtual Console. That's the go-to way to play it, but it is also the first time you can play as Zero.
Oh, nice.
In this series. So you can play as X or Zero in this game. X3 allowed you to swap between them, but if you died as Zero, you lost him for the rest of the game. This time, don't worry about it. You can keep playing as him.
Nice.
And you can swap freely in the stages, which is really cool.
So since you have that one life as Zero in the other game, do you, are there challenges to see if you can make it through the game without dying?
Yeah, there are self-inflicted challenges like that.
Interesting, okay.
Somebody once made a ROM hack of X3 for the Super Nintendo version where you play the whole game in Zero.
Oh, nice. Okay, that'd be fun too.
It really is, but X3 is considered one of the hardest in this series.
Gotcha.
Honestly, though, this game's pretty good, and by the end of it, you end up killing Burkana, and then Sigma uses the henchman's parts as a new body and creates this giant living tank of himself to try and kill X and Zero.
Okay. I mean, if you need to get something done, turning yourself into a tank seems reasonable.
Yep. But you know, it ends up going right back to one of Dr. Doppler's other bodies, and the next thing that happens is Mega Mission 3 versus Hyper Limited.
Okay.
So the parasite has kind of subsided itself on just killing other machines around Doppler Town, or what's left of it, and yeah, it still wants to know its purpose, but it's kind of content just killing people. X and Zero aren't real content with that. And
that is not a purpose that it can have.
And it ends up basically killing itself while trying to protect X.
Really?
Yeah, so it has some sort of heart, but we never truly find out what it is. The final panel is X and Zero buried the body under a gigantic wooden cross.
Okay. Random question though, like, why would he defend him like that?
Not really sure. It's been a very long time since I've read this comic.
What was he defending him from anyway?
I don't remember. It's been a very long time since I've read the comic.
Fair enough. You were still waiting on that re-release.
Yeah. I was really hoping for it. It would be a great way to refresh my memory and a pleasant thing to add to the collection.
I mean, we could just do another video on it in the future.
I could, yes. I actually plan on it. So the next game came out on the PlayStation 1. It is Mega Man X4, several years after X3.
Okay.
In this game, I have referenced this before, but this is where things start to get a bit heavy.
Okay.
So there is something known as Repliforce. So Maverick Hunters are kind of like the policemen. Repliforce is kind of like the military.
Okay.
Repliforce is comprised mostly of Reploids, and they handle larger threats like Sigma. However, lately they haven't had anything to really fight up against, but they've helped out the Maverick Hunters before, and they kind of sort of just protect humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Sigma, in a half-destroyed body, shows up to have a meeting with the general.
Okay.
The general refuses the offer,
Good choice.
but Sigma just needed to be in the room for a certain amount of time.
Oh no.
It didn't matter what the general said. So the next day, there's a press conference that's held. Iris, who has a brother named Colonel, Colonel works for Reptile Force. Iris is working with the Maverick Hunters, and a new Maverick Hunter has joined the team called Double. But Reptile Force has just announced it wants independence from humanity. It wants to create a place where it is nothing but Reploids.
I mean, with this virus going around, that can't be a good idea.
No, it can't. Colonel believes it's possible. Iris isn't sure what to think, and Double is all for X just going out there and trying his hardest. Yeah.
There's some real Magneto vibes.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But since nobody's heard from Sigma in a while, nobody really thinks about it too much. This game came out on the PlayStation 1, the Sega Saturn, the PC. Then it came out on mobile devices, it later got taken off because this is a flip phone version.
Oh, one of these games.
It's the only one in the X series to get that.
Interesting.
It came out on the PlayStation Network for PS3 and PSP.
Okay.
The X Collection and the X Legacy Collection. This is the first one where I can say, go pick up the X Legacy Collection or the X Collection version. The PlayStation 1 lag isn't quite as bad as the Super Nintendo one. There's a big video by Gigaboots. By this point, the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 is a little bit easier to manage input lag. So, I think X4, 5, and 6, X Legacy Collection or Legacy Collection 2 is your best bet. Yeah, so this huge war breaks out, and the whole game starts out by X running along the highway, trying to stop this airship from crashing, because it's about to hit a building.
Oh.
Yeah! And X gets there, and it turns out, oh no, the power core is destroyed, and Magma Dragoon was there to stop it. The thing crashes into this highly populated city, wiping out the human and Reploid population.
Yo, so you just straight up fail to stop the thing?
Yeah.
Whew.
It gets a bit rough. X and Zero end up defeating the giant mech dragon they thought was responsible, but after going through a couple stages, it turns out Magma Dragoon intentionally shot down the gigantic airship.
Oh.
He has been on the side of Reptile Force this entire time. Half of these bosses are for Reptile Force, the other half are just Mavericks. And once you make it to the end, Iris ends up trying to stop Zero from fighting Colonel, which ends up in both Colonel and Iris dying.
Yo.
Iris, who also showed up in X2. Extreme 2, sorry. And Double turns out to be a sleeper agent.
I mean, it makes sense with all the virus going around, but damn.
And
we lost a lot of people real quick there.
Yeah, Double is a double agent, and that's the joke.
I know, I'm trying to... Who could have thought?
I wonder. So... Yeah. Fun facts, by the way, Iris and Colonel were originally meant to be one robot, but because of the combat nature of Colonel and the kindness of Iris, it had to be splitted. There was just too much conflict in their memory. Also, Zero basically fell in love with Iris. And he had to kill his one thing he loved.
Damn, okay, so everybody's not having a good day.
back to Earth, actions of stopping Sigma, and now there's just this halfway destroyed space station known as sitting straight up in the outer atmosphere. And the next couple of games are going to deal with that.
Is this slowly? Can it be seen from Earth?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's just gonna chill up there,
not for
broken
long.
apart,
Not for
destroyed.
long. Not for long, but yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're about halfway done with the X series, and I want to know your thoughts so far.
Yeah, this one did get a lot heavier. The plots are a lot more complex. I'm really liking this dynamic of the Sigma virus and actually playing with the idea of these things are robots. They can have consciousnesses that are spread out a whole bunch of places, which is both great and awful for both our heroes and villains.
Oh yes, and it's about to get much, much worse if you're a human.
Oh god, no. Woo! Let's go!
So, the next game is Megaman X5. This came out on the PS1. Came out on the PlayStation 1, the PC, the PSN, the X Collection, and the X Legacy Collection too.
Okay.
When I say PC here for X4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I'm talking these stop working after Windows XP.
Windows 98 life rule!
Exactly. So here, your best bet is Legacy Collection 2 or the X Collection on PS2. Once again, Legacy Collections are out on PC. You can also emulate, which isn't a bad option for the next couple games, because... So X5 was considered to be the last one in the series.
Mhm.
So then why are there 4 more games?
Is it just, like, were they doing prequels and stuff, or...?
No, like, Keiji Inafune had this gall about him. X was going to end on X5, and then Capcom said, hell no, this makes way too much money. And had a separate team start making X6 a little while after X5. And so let's get into the story, shall we? Several months after X4, that giant space station, known as the Eurasia Colony,
Okay.
is now heading straight for Earth.
Nope.
And the planet hasn't had time to recover from X4.
You know, that's a lot right before anything crashes into it. This is not good for the entirety of the human race.
Here we are introduced to the new commander-in-chief of the Maverick Hunters, known as Cygnus.
Mhm.
And the new navigator for the Maverick Hunters, known as Alia, and the engineer, known as Douglas.
Okay.
These guys will stick around and help develop things going forward. They're basically the good guys' side, but X and Zero have to now stop what little is left of Repliforce, what little, all of the crazy Mavericks that are acting up, and even some that are just there to protect their pieces. The main thought is shoot a giant laser at this giant asteroid coming towards us and hope it destroys it. Because if it's not at least 80%, it is going to crash into Earth and basically wipe out the planet.
Yeah. Really hope this laser works. Does it work?
So that is up to the game.
Oh?
This is an RNG section where the game just kind of shrugs. If you get weird RNG, which moves every time you change your motion, every time you move, every time anything happens on gameplay screen, RNG changes.
Oh, okay, so...
The X Collection version has this a little bit more scripted and a little bit more in the player's favor so they could tell a more cohesive story. For our version of events, I'm just going to tell you both with the hybrid.
That's fascinating, just because, like, you can't actually... it's complete RNG whether or not it works when you get there.
So, the laser can either completely destroy the colony, in which case you will go directly to Sigma's stages, which is basically what little debris has crashed into Earth. If it fails, you have to go fight the other 4 bosses. You can do that anyways, but you have to fight the other 4 bosses and get the shuttle together.
Mhm.
And the shuttle is going to basically go up there and crash into it because you've already destroyed most of it with the laser.
Okay.
Basically try to drive it off course. There's only one problem. There is only one person who is suitable to go through it, because with the virus going around everywhere, the only person who is seen to not have an effect against the virus is Zero.
Because Zero was maybe because he was the source or something.
Because it's still in his system, and he is not Maverick.
Ah, so it got some kind of that.
Immunity.
Yeah.
However, here's another RNG section.
Oh.
So either it'll crash back down to Earth, and and Zero will be perfectly fine and ready to go out on the next mission,
Mhm.
or you will fully destroy it. Zero will come back down and be quote-unquote awoken.
Oh.
This version of Zero is the version Wily intended for him. This is the version of Zero that is basically practically spewing out this virus and is stronger than everybody else in the game. And
Fascinating.
he just wants to destroy X. He has no other purpose. He doesn't care.
Oh damn.
He doesn't care about the future of, he doesn't care about the future of the planet. He doesn't care about the future of Reploids. He just wants to humiliate Dr. Light and destroy X.
Okay, this is no bueno. This is not good. Nope.
For this
Nope.
For this stage of events, I'm going to say Awaken Zero didn't happen. They destroyed the colony. Zero went up there, tried, whatever. There was still some debris that hit the Earth, but it's okay overall. So they go off to the next stage, and all of these stages are kind of weird and warping around and morphing, and you kind of see what's in the virus. How it's mostly Wily, but Sigma's kind of corrupting it even more. And you fight stuff like the Dark Devil, which is like a mixture of all of the Yellow Devils that you fought up to this point in the series. And you fight a weird morphing version of... You play through a weird morphing version of Quickman stage. And as the final battle, you get to the end, and Zero has finally corrupted to himself, and X kind of sort of can't live with that. So X and Zero are forced to fight.
Damn.
And this was sort of prophesized at the end of X1. That X and Zero, only X's Buster will know when this ends, and at the end of X3, it even says X and Zero will have to fight.
Damn. Eventually.
Yeah.
Do they both make it out of the fight?
Well, it kind of sort of depends. Zero. This is another moment where, after you finish fighting Sigma, you can either have Zero just be completely destroyed, or X and Zero destroyed, and X's memory wiped out.
Oof.
Here's what actually happens though. Zero gets destroyed, X takes his saber, and X ends up heavily damaged, with Dr. Light repairing most of it because he's collected enough armor pieces to have a new self-repair system that is modulated by an AI Dr. Light. X remembers Zero and carries his saber in his memory for the next fights. And
Is there any way for like Zero to come back from that memory?
We'll get there.
Oh, fair.
So, I have mentioned up to this point a lot, and things have gotten heavy, and it's about to get worse. So this next game that came out, X6, was developed by a separate team and made in nearly, I think, half a year, 6 months, and came out the very same year as X5.
Okay.
This was a speed-up dev time, and they didn't have enough time to implement everything they wanted to. So there's a lot of bugs, and fans have been trying to fix those bugs, and there is a patch This is the one time where I say, do not play the X Legacy Collection unless you really want those achievements. Go play the improvement patches for X5 and X6. They just make the game way better. So 3 weeks after X5...
2 hours later.
There is a scientist known as Isaac and his assistant who have been researching the colony crash. They both get infected and create a new robot called Hymax, which is basically this impenetrable fortress of a robot built to protect and stop basically anybody from stopping them. They've resurrected a whole bunch of destroyed Mavericks from the crash and the colony being destroyed, and said, go investigate this new Zero nightmare. X is saying, this isn't Zero. Zero wouldn't be like this. And the hunters are like, no, but we have to stop these rogue units from investigating this stuff because they're impeding progress on actual Maverick battles. Like, these are destroyed Reploids. They should stay dead, basically. And as it turns out, Zero had help fixing himself. The translation here is really bad. To use a quote from the game, I hid myself while I tried to repair myself.
Oof.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Self-repair systems kicked in, and Isaac basically fixed Zero, because Isaac is the last remaining memory of Dr. Wily.
Gotcha.
There were 2 machines, Surges from X2 and Isaac from X6. Both had different elements of Wily in their programming.
Okay.
It's unclear whether it's from the virus or if Wily built those bodies himself, but either way, Isaac ends up basically fleeing the place and getting destroyed or whatever. I don't know, we've never heard from him before. I would have mentioned Dynamo up to this point, but he just basically tries to stop you in X5 and then fight you in X6, and then we never see him again, even though he has the best music in both games. Yeah, this game is a real mess.
You mentioned bugs.
Yeah, story-wise, gameplay-wise, this game is...
Yeah, this is all over the damn place.
Yeah. All you need to know is this another X adventure. Zero ends up fixing himself or whatever, and they end up going and stopping Sigma again. And there are multiple endings depending on how you beat the game. One jumps to the far future and shows Zero locking himself away because he finds out he's the owner of this virus and he has to quarantine himself. Another one where X says he wants to build a colony just for humans. So that way then they can stay safe from whatever conflicts these Reploids are having.
Oh.
And that's kind of where we stop in terms of plot progression for a little bit, because things are going to lighten up for just a moment. Thank God.
No more trying to murder all the humans in brutal ways and or carrying souls throughout this virus in space and time. But...
Oh, I never said that.
Oh. Anyway, moving on.
X6 came out on the PS1, the PSN, the X Collection, X Legacy 2. Already went over that, I think. Either way, I've beaten this game way too many times for me to actually care.
Fair.
So, the next game that released was Megaman X7 on the PlayStation 2.
Okay.
It then came out on the PC, and then the X Legacy Collection 2. I want to... for PC, it was Korean only.
Oh, but that's specific.
Very.
I mean, it makes sense, but very specific.
And I want to give this fun fact. For a long-ass time, that was the best way for speedrunners to play the game.
Okay.
Then the X Legacy Collection 2 came out and said, haha, no, because X7 and 8 on Legacy Collection 2 are source ports. So they have less input lag than everything else up to this point. And the last thing I'm going to mention about X7 is that they took they took the dev team behind Resident Evil 2 and told them to make a Mega Man game. And they didn't know what made 3D work. They didn't learn the right lessons from Resident Evil 2. So they didn't know what they were doing until the end of the game.
Oh god, so it takes a while to hit a stride if it hits one at all.
Yeah. Not to say this is a bad game, it is a 3D Mega Man X game, and it's alright, it's got a good story. So a few years after X6, there is a new batch. X has decided to put down his mantle. If he stops fighting, maybe people will stop fighting.
I mean, that's not how that works, but I respected the attempt.
Yeah, it's the attempt to be like, no, I'm done. You guys messed this up. I'm going somewhere else. And this new breed of Maverick Hunters have come out to basically be like, well, if X is gone, we're going to pick up his mantle. So there's the Maverick Hunters, and then there's these new branch known as Red Alert. And they were doing a good job, but they were vigilantes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So just a little bit too overzealous in applying there.
Yeah, and Axel, the youngest member, who is basically raised by the leader, Red, ends up saying, screw this, I'm gonna go find X.
I mean, probably for the best at this point.
Axel does not know his creator. He doesn't know who made him. And he has a brand new chip that allows him to copy Reploid's base for base, programming for programming. He can basically look just like another Reploid.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh yeah, and it's really fun to use. So after you've saved enough Reploids, or if you beat all 8 Mavericks, you end up unlocking X. But throughout most of the game, you'll be playing as Axel and Zero.
Hey.
The game is really cool, really fun, when it wants to be.
Gotcha.
I'd say play the Japanese version. It has a lot of improvements from the American version, which is weird for me to say, because usually it's the other way around.
What do you mean by improvements?
Like, X moves faster in the Japanese version.
Okay.
And the American version added voice clips for all of the characters when they fight, without thinking about how often they use each move.
Okay, that's cool.
So, for example, the American version is... One of the fight just says constantly, it's Flame High and already just goes burn, burn, burn to the ground, burn to the ground, burn to the ground, and it never stops until you finish the fight.
Oh.
So, the Japanese version, it's silence except for, noises of the actual fight, which makes it so much more enjoyable.
Gotcha. So play the Japanese version so it's cohesive and not just screaming at you about the moveset.
So it turned out that, so by the end of the game, you find out that Axel left because Sigma had infected Red, and was basically being like, ha, this isn't the Maverick Hunters anymore, you guys are just Mavericks. And Axel ends up copying Red's appearance to full Sigma into a false sense of opening up his guard. At the end of the game, and he just says, he just lifts up his pistol and shoots Sigma in the back of underneath the jaw into the back of the head.
Beautiful.
And it's
someone who does not screw around when they come to supervillains. I respect this guy.
Yeah, Axel is one of the best, even if he has one of the more whiny voice actors in the game.
Fair.
I do really like Axel, though. He's honestly one of my favorite characters because he's a little cocky, he's a little more fun, he's got a great hover, he can dodge roll, he can shoot in any of the 8 directions.
Nice.
He's got rapid fire pistols, and each one of the sub-weapons, special weapons, change how the gun works.
Okay, that's cool.
So one of them will literally turn it into a ray gun, and it's really cool.
Yes.
So after this game, we're not really given a time frame, but the next one that comes out is X8. This one came out on the PS2, the PC, the PSN, only in Japan, and the X Legacy Collection 2.
Mhm.
X Legacy Collection 2 all the way for this one, but X8's pretty good. So they've rolled out all of these new Reploids that have these new copy chips that let them take the appearance and form of other Reploids, right?
Mhm.
Things go fine for a while. They're building a new space elevator so they can create a new home for in case things get too heavy for humans to go to.
Mhm.
But that whole thing is hijacked because the basically lead of the project ends up getting hijacked. They're just missing. They're on the moon and they're gone. And X is supposed to investigate by heading off to the first opening stage, Noah's Park, and ends up getting help between X and Zero. I didn't mention this in X7, but X7 and 8 let you swap between two characters and let you pick which two characters you play as throughout the stages. So that first intro stage, you switch between X, Zero, and Axel just to get a feel for him, and then after that, pick who you want. Pick two and play a stage. Vile is back. It's never really explained how, but he's got this awesome new green body.
Yes.
But it turns out that by the time you finish fighting the 8 bosses in this one and unlocking a whole bunch of upgrades and whatnot, it turns out that the chip that allowed them to change forms also has Sigma's presence implanted on it.
Oh, no, we thought we killed you.
Yeah, and by the time you actually see Sigma in his real body, he's like half destroyed and just data that's just floating there in space.
Interesting.
Like, he looks like this is the last time you're gonna see him. And then he just ends up getting absorbed because the main person who you should feel threatened by is the leader of the project for the Jacob elevator.
Yo, why?
So, Sigma was like, I'm in control of all of these people. No. These new generation Reploids can basically stop viruses in their own internal system. And that includes the Sigma virus. So they can't go Maverick, but they can choose to just kill. And that's a little fucked up when you think about Axel being the first of these guys, and Axel thinks this is so messed up.
I mean, but then Axel was really helpful with us with the whole just kill thing.
Yeah, and
It's a little bit of a conflict. I mean, I get it. I get the discomfort, but dude.
So the leader of the Jacob Project, Lumine, ends up becoming this angelic form, gets destroyed, gets killed by X and Zero. Axel thinks it's all over, gets real close to the dead body, and then it latches onto the crystal on his head, and he's knocked out for the next, hour and a half that they slide back down to Earth from this from the orbital elevator. And that is where the game's left the main story's plot. Axel is knocked out, he has some attachment to Lumine, and Sigma is fully destroyed.
Okay. So we're finally free of Sigma. Did we make it out?
We made it out of Sigma. There is one more X game, though.
Oh.
So this is an alternate timeline that takes place after X8, after X7. In this series of events, whatever, Sigma ends up basically dying at the end of X7 or something like that. And this whole game is an RPG. It's called Megaman X Command Mission. It came out on the PS2, the GameCube, and that's it.
Just those two?
Just those two.
One of my favorite eras, though, so...
Yeah, I'm not going to go into much. I think the GameCube's the way to go because it has really cool Game Boy Advance connectivity, but both versions are fine. It's technically great, and it's a really good RPG. It's got something very similar to the press turn combat system from Shin Megami Tensei.
Cool. I love that.
And you can have up to 3 characters on your team. The main villain is... I'm not going to spoil who the main villain is, because that's the whole thing. Actually, I don't want to even go into this plot here. All that you need to know is there's a guy named Spider, and he's really cool, and
Oh.
you end up, and it's like a whole battle over these new metals called force metals, but it's
Okay,
not,
that
it's,
sounds real intriguing.
it's not canon, but all of these robots do eventually end up existing thanks to our next game that we're going to talk about here, Megaman X Dive. This is a PC and mobile game. It is not canon from what I can find. I really want it to be canon, though, because it's a good mobile game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm going to say about that, because it's just... It's good.
It's good. Play it. Don't spoil it for yourself.
Yeah. I
Respect that. Yeah.
And the final game here is a Chinese PC game called Rockman X Math Whirlwind.
Okay.
It's an edutainment game.
What are we learning?
Math.
Damn.
Basic math.
Fair
and
enough.
The D-Pad have a lovely playthrough of that up there on their channel, so go check them out for that. But that's all I have for the X series. So I'm gonna let Zero Magnus take it away for introducing our next series, the Zero series.
Hello there, I'm Magnus Zero, and my favorite of the Mega Man franchise is the Zero series, specifically Mega Man 03. 03, along with the rest of the series, has the fortunate fate of having solid play on the original hardware of the Game Boy Advance, and the re-releases be a collection over the years. By then, it's entirely your own preference based on what system you own. Personally, I use emulation to simulate the accuracy of the original hardware as best as possible. If you're craving the raw experience and challenge uninterrupted by the quality of life changes made in the later releases, going for emulation or the original hardware is best. However, placing my bias aside, I'd say in my humble opinion that the Zero ZX Legacy Collection is the definitive version for anyone of all skill levels to play. The save assist function aids newcomers very well, as these games, especially the first one, has a reputation for being unforgivingly brutal. It's objectively the most comfortable experience.
We saw a little bit of the future with X6 and X5, and where Zero kind of sort of just decides he needs to quarantine, and yeah, so he locks himself up into a capsule and calls it quit for a while. And then we open up in the year 22XX with a young human girl running away from a militia army of robots that look like X, except without the face and without the feeling and without the emotion.
Oh, that's not disturbing at all.
Yeah, so she's running away with some resistance members, and she comes across an ancient dig site from about 100 years prior, where Zero locked himself up, and he's like half destroyed and dilapidated, and it would take a lot of time, which they don't have because they're being chased by robots, to reactivate him and have him keep his memories.
Oh, so they just have to boot him hard without the memories.
Yeah, they just gotta boot him up, and when he boots up, it is going to be a rough awakening. He doesn't have his sword, he's just got... He doesn't even have a blaster, he's just... Zero's body, for the most part, like, stripped down to the bare minimum. It's been upgraded a couple times since then, but this is how this game opens. And immediately, the soldiers that were around this young girl when Zero got awoken are pretty much killed right there and then and there in front of their eyes, and blood comes gushing out, and Zero is awoken with the power of a cyber elf, which I will get to in a little bit, and Zero rushes to the save to save CL. This isn't as bad as the first time he was activated, where he just went through and ripped and killed everything. He just is like, alright, I know what I have to do, and rushes out to save her. Get her to safety.
Okay, good. So he's still himself, it's just more of a, like, damn, that's a very brutal thing to wake up to.
Yeah.
What's your earliest memory? Well...
How far back do you go? Well, there was some fighting, and then death. So, this is where our game starts up with Mega Man Zero.
Mhm.
There's a few things you should know. It is called Mega Man Zero not because he is Mega Man Zero, it is because he is Zero and this takes place in the Mega Man universe. Also, there was 200 years of peace in between now and X. Or at least 100 years of peace being led off of X. So these people were ruled by X himself. What little of the population of planet Earth is left basically huddled together in a little utopia called Neo Arcadia.
Okay.
And because they didn't write down everything that happened, everything that Dr. Light invented, and with all the fighting and the war happening with the Mavericks, the ability to create energy crystals was lost, and they are running out of power.
Oh.
So X's big correlation was to rip apart Reploids for their energy cores to keep humans in a comfortable living situation.
But the Reploids are also like people on some level.
Alive. So they are trying to book it out of here. And if none of this sounds like something X would do, that's for good reason. By the time they make it out of there and X ends up finding his saber, which is being gifted to him by another cyber elf, Zero is kind of filled in. Zero is not the main character of this game. It is the character you play as, but he is not the hero.
Interesting.
You play as the role of protector to a scientist known as CL. She is working on the energy crisis and a way to hopefully promote peace between robots and humans. In that time, Reploids have become so human-like that there's basically no difference.
Yeah.
And the Resistance members have been branded with a red triangle on all of their hats to basically signify, we are Resistance, we will stop you, there is a better solution out there. CL was at one point a high-ranking council leader for X. And as it turns out, X died after about 100 years.
Ooh.
So, the X we knew died, and when he died, he became a cyber elf. And when nobody could find X, they built a new X to keep the peace between the people, but they didn't realize all the effort that took, and this new X with all of this responsibility but no fighting cracked under pressure.
Oh, damn.
And that's why he decided genocide is the perfect answer to energy crisis.
Just kill everyone. That's the best way out. And of course, there's still that kind of robot-y problem solution when you don't actually code everything, because if he's not as advanced, just straight up.
Yeah. I mean, he still has the ability to go. He's still a Reploid, but he is not anything like X. And that cyber elf that gave Zero his saber, that is what is left of the original X.
Okay.
He is nothing but a data stream now. It takes a lot of power just for him to be there.
Damn. Okay.
So it's kind of like his soul. Reploids have evolved to have a soul. That is...
It's like some real Force Ghost vibes.
It 100% is, and plays like that a lot.
Fair.
So this first game came out on the Game Boy Advance. It was then re-released on something called the Zero Collection for the DS. Then it was re-released again on the Virtual Console for Wii U. And lastly, it was ported to ported to all systems and PC via the Zero ZX Legacy Collection. For all of these games, that is the go-to. These are all ports to modern systems. So, there's less input lag than the X Legacy Collection. And there's bonuses. And for all of these games, from 0-1 all the way through ZX Advent, just get the Zero Collection. This is the only time I'm really going to mention what these games were coming out on, because there's really no other good way to play these games other than that. Or emulation, but Zero ZX Legacy Collection is your best bet.
Gotcha.
So it makes things super simple, and things are only going to get easier from here.
Excellent.
So Zero gets all the way up to the top, finds out that, no, this is a copy X, and even his body still has some of that battle memory that the real X was stronger than this.
Mm-hmm.
And ends up destroying the copy.
Oh.
And it incites a little bit of panic in the people. But CL got her wish. She put an end to the genocide for now. But there is still a lot of robots going after them, and Zero has decided to step away from the fighting and hopefully try to find himself.
I mean, I respect him every single time he tries, but, like, dude,
Well,
things always go bad.
But he has no memory, and he's not
Oh,
quite...
fair.
So he's just trying to get some new grounding.
No, he's behaving exactly as himself. I understand now.
Yeah. He goes out into the desert, the great beyond, just to try and find something, and all he finds is more destroyed Reploids, more death, more destruction, and he's like, this isn't for me. This isn't what I want. I'm gonna go back. I need repaired. I haven't been fixed in a long time. Nobody's looked at me. Nobody's repaired me. I need help. And he starts making it back to the Resistance base. And he almost gets there.
Oh, no.
But one of the high-ranking council of X, Harpuya, ends up dragging Zero's corpse back to the Resistance base and dropping him off. Harpuya didn't like Copy X, and Harpuya and the Four Guardians really don't care for the new ruler of Neo Arcadia. And we're gonna find out why in a little bit, but for now, just know these guys exist, and they kind of work under X, and one of them killed themselves because they thought they were being loyal to X, and just didn't know that it was Copy.
Damn. That got dark real quick.
Yeah. So, Zero ends up getting patched up and fixed by the Resistance base, and it turns out that they've got a whole new, like, militia army leader there, who is like, hey, we need to find the Mother Elf. And hopefully this will put a stop to our energy crisis. It might be a solution. It was the solution to the Maverick virus, after all. So it might be the solution here. And they go out and fight, and Zero ends up fighting for this army. And it turns out the main guy was just looking for power and control, and turned on everybody. So he used the army and the people to try and rule Neo Arcadia, because he thought his way was best. His way was to continue to kill Reploids, because he just doesn't like Reploids. He was just using them as a means to an end.
Yeah.
The thing is the Mother Elf ends up basically killing him at the end of the game.
I mean, that's good.
The Mother Elf, though, escaped
Okay.
because of this. And that's not a good thing, because the Mother Elf warps reality.
Oh. So even though she did a good thing here, her existence kind of changes too much for us to have her here.
Yeah,
Like, what kind of reality warping? How does it work?
So, it uses the internet as its own being. So the internet in the entire Mega Man timeline kind of just goes out of control at one point or another. I was under the impression that the Battle Network timeline's internet was the same as the internet in the Zero games, because there's all sorts of connectivity between them.
Okay, I mean...
And then somebody decided to tell me that was wrong, so I'm just going to explain it under the guise that it is a fan theory, but it is what I consider canon.
Respect.
The Battle Network,
I mean...
the Battle Network timeline is very powerful with its internet. The whole series takes place across the internet, and sometimes it ends up leeching over and grabbing over things. And one of those things is sometimes the robots from the main timeline end up becoming viruses in the other, and vice versa. And just because it's that powerful, there's stuff like Megaman Star Force from Geostellar from the Star Force games ends up being able to talk to Classic a whole 200 years and another timeline over.
Woo!
Yeah.
I like the idea of it all being linked, personally.
I like it being linked, like, it can be its own thing, but I just like the fact that the internet is that wide and vast that it just grabs.
Mhm.
But that's Zero 2, and we find out that the Mother Elf was built with Zero in mind. That was how they contained all of the Mavericks. By
Gotcha.
basically sealing it in Zero's essence. They'll all go back to Zero, so if we make something called a Mother Elf, it'll just kind of grab up all of the Mavericks. It'll be okay.
Mm.
And it was okay for 200 years.
Mm.
Or 100-ish years. But that's all they wrote for Zero 2. Zero 3 is considered often the best game
Neat.
in this entire timeline. And it's here we find out that the leader of Neo Arcadia is an outcast person named Dr. Weil.
Okay.
This isn't Wily. This isn't Wily. In Japanese, he was known as Dr. Vile.
Mhm.
But to not confuse Vile and Vile, they said, screw it, he's Dr. Weil.
Gotcha.
But essentially, he was exiled by the original X for having way too much of a solid ground Earth mentality of destroy everything around them.
Mm.
Essentially, if you were not in Neo Arcadia, kill them.
Yeah, no, the Scorched Earth there is not going to work.
No, it's not. So X said, we're going to strip you from your power. And because your views are this horrific, I want you to think on it. We're not going to kill you, but we are going to send you out into the desert with infinite time on your hands, so he cannot die. He is stuck inside of a tube that's on his head. He is a head with a robot body, and he is stuck in the desert. But with Copy X's death, he came back to Neo Arcadia to rule it, because he's like, oh, I was close to X, look at me, you guys will elect me as your leader, right?
Yeah, I am like the whole kind of look at me, the proxy heir, even though you're not really.
Look, I even fixed X, and he rebuilds Copy X, but he's got a really creepy stutter now, and like half his face is gone.
Yeah, no. Nope.
And he's just being basically pulled puppet strings by Dr. Weil.
Mhm.
In this game, we end up finding out that Zero's main body, his original mind, was being kept in stasis in a Guardian, and that the body, the mind that we were playing as, the body that we were playing in is basically Zero's repaired body. It's one that he built for himself, and that the one that he put away in sleep does not have his real mind, but has all of the defects that Dr. Wily put into it. So it's,
Oh no.
this is the awakened Zero,
So it has all of the worst parts.
and it's all locked up together. But Zero's mind and memory, that's all in the character you're playing as.
Gotcha.
And you end up destroying that original body once and for all.
Woo.
And Zero just kind of accepts he is Zero, and nothing's gonna change that. And just when you thought things were done, CL had put a stop to the energy problems, but Dr. Weil is still, the ruler of Neo Arcadia, and that's no good. Some humans decided, I'm done with technology, and go back to the meteorite crash from X4 and X5, and say, no, life is growing here. This is where we're going to start our new home.
I mean, I can understand wanting to be completely done with technology, especially after that entire plotline.
And Dr. Weil says, well, I can enact my Scorched Earth policy now that there's people outside outside.
No.
He finishes putting together his own little space station and aims it right at that meteorite crash and says he's gonna shoot a laser at it. And CL and Zero ends up being like, no, we're gonna protect this little island even if they don't want our help. And they put a stop to everything. Zero gets to the top of the space station, warps up there, finally kills Dr. Weil, and
Woo!
just as it's but the space station is now crashing down to Earth because it's not, stable.
Yeah.
It was gonna crash regardless, so another crash right in the same spot where it was gonna happen before. Zero says screw it and self-destructs himself
Oh,
to save everybody.
damn.
So Zero ends up saving all the people, and all that we see that's left of him is the helmet.
Damn.
But the energy.
Is there any way,
What?
is there any way to preserve his consciousness?
Well, we have cyber elves, and we've seen X's cyber elf before, and we don't ever see Zero's, but there's gonna be about 200 years of peace.
Mm-hmm.
The three masters end up coming out: Master Thomas, Master Albert, and Master Mikhail.
Mhm.
And they have decided amongst themselves to start something known as a game of destiny.
Mhm.
With the Mother Elf being destroyed, and with Mavericks basically being a thing that can happen again,
Mhm.
but this time it's not nearly as big of a threat. They need people to save them, so there's still the Maverick Hunters around, and they've decided to allow humans to fight with them and Reploids. They've created something known as a biometal.
Oh.
It is a living piece of metal that holds data from the Cyber Elves.
Okay, so like, if you were to build a body out of this and put a Reploid into it, it would still be alive and a robot.
Yes. So
Interesting.
these aren't so much as machines you get into, but something that morphs around your body. Because at this point, humans have started to get technological implants, and machines have become more human. To the point where remember the resistance triangle I mentioned?
Mhm.
That is now legally has to be put on all Reploids' foreheads.
Oh, interesting.
They have to be marked, so that way then they're not just let loose if they become Maverick.
So, I mean, because, like, if you can't tell the difference between them any other way, they're, like, indistinguishable. Maybe we should...
Yeah, so there's 200 years of peace, and we pick back up in 24XX on the DS for Mega Man ZX.
Okay.
This game's really cool. It's a Metroidvania,
Mhm.
and you play as a hybrid X-Zero combo. Who, none of the memories, none of the baggage from before, but now Mega Man has less become a name and more so a title.
Okay.
So if you are a Maverick Hunter with a biometal, you are a Mega Man. Woman, female, man, woman, child, you are a Mega Man.
Okay.
So that is why it's called Mega Man in this far ahead,
Gotcha. So everyone is... If you have lived up to the title of Mega Man, you will become a Mega Man.
Yes. If you lived up to the title of X, you will be a Mega Man, essentially. And one of the three masters have decided to create something known as a game of destiny.
Oh?
So biometal users, there's not that many of them, and they've begun fighting amongst themselves to see who's the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
This was all a big guy's employ by one of the three masters known as Master Albert. However, Serpent, the leading tech company and Amazon-like shipment facility plant, was playing into it.
Okay.
So, big corporation playing into it, playing into this massive fight, and you don't really find out why you're fighting in the first game, but you find out in the sequel. So,
Okay.
Once again, ZX Legacy Collection is your best way to play it. It's also the only other way to play it other than emulation.
Fair.
And our final game is another Metroidvania, ZX Advent. You either play as a human who is a bounty hunter looking for a treasure named Ash, or a recently awoken Reploid who is just scared out of his wits named Gray. And both of them use something known as, use the biometal Model A.
Okay.
It has all of the abilities of Axel.
Cool. Yes.
But there is a caveat.
Okay.
Gray was built to be a second body for Master Albert.
Okay.
He doesn't want to become that. He's got his own consciousness. He just wants everything to be normal.
Ooh, okay, that's a struggle.
And it turns out that this big game of Destiny, where they were fighting amongst each other, that was to activate the Model W core, which is the giant space station from 04, which has enough energy to basically make somebody a god because of how much power was put into it.
Yo, okay.
It's essentially radiation is making people powerful, and yeah. So this guy thinks he's God, and Gray and Ash put a stop to it with the help of Ash and with the help of Vent and Ale from the first game, and yeah, it's left on a cliffhanger here because this one's another one where we need a sequel. Where Master Albert dies, Master Thomas and Master Mikhail are discussing, okay, well, where do we go from here? Now there's only two masters. Master Thomas is saying, well, let's bring back, we can bring back people. We have a bunch of bodies. Why don't we just, get rid of everybody and try again? And Master Mikhail's like, no, we're not doing that. But then in warps the 4 Guardians from earlier, who have been reactivated to follow Master Thomas.
Yo.
And that's where it's left off.
That is... So everybody's showing up, there's about to be this epic duel, and no sequel.
No sequel. One was planned apparently, but Inti Creates has not said anything on this, and neither have Capcom. I'm hoping for a sequel. Maybe someday.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Because these are really good Metroidvanias, and I don't know, an Igarashi Megaman game would be really sick.
Yes, it would.
So I'm going to leave this next bit up to Shadow Rock X as we venture into our final part of the Mega Man timeline.
Okay.
Howdy y'all, Shadowrock here. Thank you to Gavin Dragon for having me on today. By the way, if I sound extra echoey than normal, it's because I am in the middle of a move and I'm in an empty house at the moment with nothing to really sound dampen anything. So in case you're wondering, that's why. Anyway, the first question presented to me was, what is my favorite classic Mega Man game? Out of the mainline series? That's easy. I gotta give it to Mega Man 7. I just love everything about this game. From its dark and ominous intro, to the excellent soundtrack, the large and colorful sprites, all the little secrets and other fun things to find, and even the fact that the weapons interact with the environment in many interesting ways. This game is just chock full of content, which is surprising considering it only took about 3 months to make this game. Insane, isn't it? And of course, you can't forget the edgy ending to the game. It has a bit of a duller edge in the Japanese version, but nevertheless, it is pretty unique for that. For some of us, nothing beats that feeling of playing with the original console and the original controller that the game was designed for, and just playing it loud like it's 1990 again. That all said, let's be realistic here. Not everybody is going to shell out hundreds of dollars for all the RGB mods, the upscalers, and all that just to experience the games the original way. And out of the box, those old consoles aren't the most compatible with modern HD televisions. There's also issues like the PlayStation consoles, which, man, those disk drives are getting pretty shoddy these days. So what I would recommend to most people who wants to get into the Mega Man series for cheap and still want pretty much the best experience possible I would highly recommend the Mega Man Legacy collections. But hey, that's pretty much all for me. Thank you once again to Gavin Dragon for letting me on to talk a little bit. And I'll leave you guys with one thing. Us enthusiasts like to really get into the nitty gritty of things, trying to optimize our setups, find the best ways to play the games, get the best picture quality, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, whether you're using original hardware, emulation, official collections, or anything else, it's all perfectly fine as long as you're having fun. And that is the key thing, my friends. However it is most convenient for you, just play the darn games.
Alright, and so as we venture into the final story here, we pick up... So, last we left off, it was 24XX. Here's where the dates start to get a little fuzzy.
Oh.
We are now in the year 8000.
Whoa.
And man is no more. And Reploid is no more.
What?
History has kind of been wiped out and the Earth is flooded.
Okay.
Life began anew. So if you know anything about evolution, Arjun, how did we evolve? What did we evolve alongside?
So, like, we kind of evolved alongside, like, Neanderthals and a bunch of other hominids, and then, like,
Yes,
we ended up...
but what did we create that we lived alongside?
Oh, dogs.
Okay, fair. Tools.
Sorry. Oh, tools, fair.
Tools.
Yes, definitely.
And
We had way better tool use than any of our compatriots. Even the ones that had tools, we were able to kind of
So-
extrapolate and build on them more than they did.
What happens when man's tools are so far advanced that they are like modern day machinery times 1,000?
When machinery becomes that advanced, become indistinguishable from a god, and if I'm not mistaken, we left off somewhere where there's a massive amount of energy that could make someone into a god.
That's fair. But for this timeline, where we're at now, human history has been wiped out, and there is a new species of human known as carbons.
Oh.
These are half human, half machine hybrids.
Okay.
They have...
Oh, so this is where that living wet metal went.
Yes, it
Got it.
became the next human race, and most people do not believe that they are carbons. Most believe they're human, because everything has said nothing to the contrary.
That's fair.
And this is where we pick up with Mega Man Legends.
Okay.
The world is flooded, there's a giant asteroid above, so the planet Earth looks like there's 2 moons.
Neat.
And, you know, everything seems a-okay. There's these ruins underground, and people dig under them, and they're known as diggers.
Mhm.
It's basically a job of harvesting energy crystals from the past to hopefully, you know, solve another energy crisis that's happening.
Okay.
And a small baby child was found in one of these tunnels and has been raised alongside Roll Casket, who decided to name the young child Megaman off of her favorite video game character.
Excellent.
Because the tales from the past became video games.
Tongue-in-cheek, I love that.
Yeah. So the first game here is The Misadventures of Tron Bonne.
Mhm.
And in this game, you take control of Tron and the Surfbots, and this game came out on the PS1, and it's kind of like a micromanaging sim game mixed with dungeon crawling moments and little puzzle action. It's kind of a side game.
Okay.
It's also upwards to $1,000.
Oh, jeez. Woo!
It only came out on the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation Network.
Mhm.
Emulation or PlayStation Network are the only 2 ways I'm going to ever recommend anybody play this game. It is not worth $1,000, even if it was released in 2000. Like, there is no reason.
That's fair. There is, at some point in time, let the collectors be the collectors.
Yeah. And the main story here is Tron's brother got kidnapped by a loan collector named Glide, and now they have to pay off a debt, and Tron is trying desperately to pay off that debt by
Wait a
any
minute.
means necessary.
So you're telling me the Mega Man game that costs $1,000 is about trying to pay off a debt?
Yes.
That's beautiful. Just gotta point that out real quick. It's the plot of the game will be your life shortly after buying it.
Yes.
Just straight up. That's gloriously accidentally cursed, and I love it.
The game is great. It has an awesome voice acting cast. Believe it or not, all of the Legends games are fully voice acted and have some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in a video game, even nowadays, honestly.
Excellent. Hell yeah.
And moving on from there, basically all you do is you bust Glide out and you make a bunch of money, but then one of the server bots lost all of the money that you were going to use to make a small shop, so you have to go back to your life of pirating and pillaging, and that's where we pick up with the next game, which is actually the first game.
Okay.
The next game is Mega Man Legends. We pick back up with that baby child who is now a teenager. Or becoming a teenager. And they have been on digs before, and this entire game is like, it's a little bit like Zelda, a little bit like Majora's Mask. It also came out a week before, or a week or so before Ocarina of Time, and had lock-on functionality.
Interesting.
So the lock-on button from Zelda, Mega Man did it first. The whole Zelda in 3D, Mega Man did it first.
Okay. This might be one to check out.
100% check it out. If you've never played this game, it came out on the PlayStation 1, had a later PC port. I cannot recommend or say anything about the PC port. I've never even heard anybody play it, but the Wikipedia says it's there, and I can't find footage of it, so...
Fair enough.
There is a PC port. It came out on the N64 as Mega Man 64. It came out on the PSP in Japan, and then later on the PlayStation Network for like $5.
Okay, damn, that was well good. So plenty of ways to play that one.
Yeah, I have a PlayStation 1 physical copy. I did buy the PSN because I'm a schmup, but this game costs like $100.
Okay.
All of these games are very expensive,
Yeah.
and that's for good reason. People like these games. They are really good.
That's fair.
So, coming out with this game, it is amazingly fun, and I don't want to spoil the story too much. But to say this is the game where you find out that, for lack of a better term, this is the game where you find out that none of these people are human, and that the word surgery and being a mechanic are the same job.
Yep.
These people can replace their limbs with mechanical parts, and that's what you end up doing throughout the entire game. And you end up stopping them from setting that second moon, that second satellite, from destroying and resetting the Earth. Because essentially what's happened is one of the plans was to reset the Earth, and Carbons, they didn't like Carbons, they just wanted humans to exist again, but instead of humans, they got Carbons, but Carbons became so human-like that it didn't matter. They didn't need the humans anymore. And this is where we first find out that there is somebody named the Master up on that satellite who used to be human, or is still human. And
Interesting.
yeah,
So would that make him the last human?
it does make him the last human.
Okay.
However, we're going to run into a little problem here. Our next game on this list is Mega Man Legends Great Adventure on the Five Islands.
Okay.
This came out on mobile flip phones.
Ooh.
I have never played this game. There are dubbed cutscenes online of this game by fans. There is currently an effort to dump and preserve this game for future people to play by fans.
Gotcha.
However, we're not there yet, and I don't know what happens in this game, and that's okay.
It's one of those holy grails that will take a while to get to one event, and when we do, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, it's cute, it's short, but that's okay. But that brings us to our final game for this discussion and topic. Mega Man Legends 2.
Okay, the last one.
This game came out on PlayStation 1, PC, PSP, and PSN.
Mhm.
It costs about $200, and I have been trying to get a PS1 copy. PSN's your best way to get it. It's like $5 to $10. It's perfect. When it's an understatement to say that this game came out on the PS1 in the year 2000, and it looks like a PS2 game.
Whoa, okay.
It is about 4 times the length of the first one.
Mhm.
It is an even better Zelda-like. It has way more customizable features, like you can now change out what type of armor you have on, what shoes you have on, the helmet type, and of course the weapons, and what your buster does, just like the last game.
Yes, okay.
And the whole story here is the Earth is getting less flooded now, and one of the islands off the shore has this giant storm that has just been raging for eons. And they want to know what's on it. And when they get there, they find a machine that knows it's a machine, that knows it's a Reploid, in a capsule, and it can control the Reaver bots, and it just wants to live out its days. Or so it says. What it's actually doing is trying to carry out the final prototype unit's command, which is to reset the Earth again, and hopefully there's humans again.
Oh, but that would kill everybody who's currently here.
Yeah, which it's what they want. And what you end up doing for them is collecting the 4 keys that lets them achieve that. But then you end up defeating them on that space station and basically talking them out of it. Explaining.
Nice.
But here's where the twist is. Remember how I mentioned that person named the Master? They had been on that starship for centuries.
Gotcha.
Thousands and thousands of years. He was the only human left, and you were the last Maverick Hunter.
Gotcha. So while we're even trying to talk him out of it, it might still make sense to push the button.
Well, we're not talking him out of it. He died. He got down to Earth, saw the Carbons living out their days just as the humans once did, and decided, I want to die on this Earth like everybody else, and I want these people to continue to be human.
Nice.
And requested that Mega Man Trigger, or Mega Man Volnut, the character you play as, to kill him. And to finish resetting the entire orbital structure of that thing so it doesn't destroy the Earth.
Okay. Damn.
Mega Man backed up his memories into the little robot named Data. He's a little monkey. Killed the Master peacefully and respectfully, buried him on the planet Earth, and went back up there to try to reset stuff. And when that happened, they triggered him as a Maverick, reset him, and set him in the caves as a baby. Which is where, you pick up from there. So when you went back up and basically explained, no, this was what he wanted. He wanted these people to live out their days. Don't reset anything. It's perfect the way it is. Because there's no fighting. It's peaceful.
No, they've finally achieved it. Don't put it all the way back to the beginning, and we'll have to redo everything.
Yeah. And he achieves that goal, but now he's stuck on the planet. And this is where I have to say, Mega Man Legends 3 was supposed to come out for the 3DS. It was supposed to be a launch title. Capcom never approved the project while they were working on it.
What?
Keiji Inafune left the dev team, and he was the head person for that team, left Capcom in a very bitter, sour way. And Capcom decided to delete everything for Legends 3. everything,
No. No.
and repurposed the engine for Resident Evil Revelations on the 3DS.
Okay, so it just never came out on the 3DS?
It never came out at all.
Damn.
There is a petition called 100,000 Strong,
Mhm.
asking and begging every single day for Capcom to bring back Mega Man Legends 3, and it's never happened.
Damn.
So, here I am in the year 2022 as I record this, and it may seem very bleak. It sounds very bleak, right? Like,
I mean-
the last game, there's like 3 cliffhangers.
Yeah, actually, at this point. I'm getting Half-Life 2 vibes.
However, within that time, in between this game and everything else that's happened, we've had the Legacy Collections come out and sell the gangbusters.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the best-selling Mega Man game, second only to Mega Man 2, and even by now it might surpass it, called Mega Man 11 that came out in 2018. And a new Legacy Collection on the way with a new title in development, plus X-Dive. So, to say that this series is dead, it is far from dead. I've heard multiple things from multiple dev sources. I've heard them say they want to make a Command Mission 2 when they have a chance and continue that RPG series. I've heard things like they want to make an X9, they want to make a Mega Man 12, they want to make a Legends 3 once they have the confidence that they can do it right.
This sounds like not wrong. This is gonna be okay.
This series is perfectly fine. So, for me, the long of the short of this series has been, what is the best way to play? And my answer to that is, the best way to play these games is whatever way comes out next, or whatever way is currently available and cheapest to you.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm also going to say that if you don't pick up the Legacy Collections, this series probably would have been flat on its face. When they released the Legacy Collection, they had no idea that it was going to sell like it did. It quickly rose to, I think, the 5th best-selling Mega Man game. And it was just a collection of the originals. So when they made the sequel and put out more games on it, they threw in little Easter eggs and secrets to them working on 11.
Excellent.
So,
I love it when it's also kind of like that, almost an ARG-esque thing where you have to dig it up out of the game itself. That adds so much flavor.
it was so strange, but so heartwarming to know that they hadn't forgotten about our blue hero. So I gotta say, Argent, with everything that you have now heard about the classic Mega Man timeline and this whole series of over 70 games,
Damn.
I haven't even hit 70. I know that for sure. What do you think?
I'm thinking this is one of the all-time classic series of gaming, and I'm gonna need to ask you, which title should I pick out first, as someone who's never played any Mega Man before?
My personal starting point is gonna tell me instantly, go pick up Mega Man 11, pick it up on PC, PlayStation, Switch, Xbox. It doesn't matter how you play this one. It's got a perfect casual mode that is just the right amount of challenge for a newcomer, and it's got enough content to be like, yes, if I spent $20 on this, it's perfect.
Amazing. I will have to go do that then.
And if you liked that, go try out the other games. So, but if you're not into platformers, go for Battle Network with RPGs, or go for just straight up Mega Man Legends if you're really a big fan of Zelda.
I'm honestly kind of intrigued about, the Legends for 3D stuff on the N64. I actually might be able to get that one running with some emulation stuff here very shortly as well.
I would say give it a go. Even if there's a little bit of bugginess, it's a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
But I think that's it for me. Hi there, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at GavinDragonYT. You can also donate to the PayPal link on your screen or in the description below. And once this video is over, feel free to click on either video to the left and right of me. There will be part 2 to this coming sometime in 2023, so please be sure to stick around. I've got lots more content planned. Thank you, everybody, and good night, everybody.